Chapter 231. The exit that Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul found was in the forest to the west of town. Initially, they had fallen into the hole when they were searching the houses, but now they had traversed the entire Chonglin town underground. If they were walking on the ground, they would not have needed more than half a day. However, underground, the paths were complicated and winding. Occasionally, they would run into obstacles, and they might even turn back. They were lucky to be able to walk out before dawn on the third day. When the two returned to Chonglin Inn, it was the darkest moment before dawn, and the inn's door was still closed. Of course, there were side doors, back doors, second-floor corridor windows, third-floor corridor windows, and so on. There were many ways to enter the inn. If it were any other martial artist, as long as they had a little bit of experience in the martial world or a foundation in lightness skill, it would be easy for them to enter and leave the inn. But these two, bang, bang, bang. At 3 or 4 in the morning, when people were asleep, they started to knock on the door. After knocking for a while, a worker's voice came from inside. "Who is it?" "The one from Skyroom C." "Let us in," Xiao Tan replied. Several seconds later, the worker opened the door and said sleepily, "Sir, why are you outside in the middle of the night?" "Ha! I'm sorry, thank you." Xiao Tan naturally would not answer the man's question. He replied with a few words and then went upstairs with Laughing Soul. The worker naturally did not really want to know what they were doing outside in the middle of the night. He was just joking. After the two went upstairs, the worker closed the door and returned to the counter on the first floor to continue his slumber. There was a reason why the worker would sleep in the lobby on the first floor. It was not that he was afraid of losing money from the counter, but he was afraid that someone would come to steal the wine. To put it bluntly, he was afraid of Lu San. Returning to the guest room, the two pushed open the door and saw Toby sitting alone on the only bed in the room. His legs were crossed, and his fingers were intertwined. They hung naturally on his feet, and his eyes were closed. We haven't seen each other for a day, and Brother Jean has already entered the path of cultivation?" Laughing Soul mocked. Toby had already heard them coming in. He knew that those who could open the door from the outside had to be his teammates, so he did not panic. At this moment, he slowly opened his eyes and said, "I'm using a skill to recover my stamina points." "Oh, there's actually an active skill that restores energy?" Xiao Tan asked. "Then what does this skill consume?" "There is no exhaustion," Toby replied. "But you have to meditate like this." Laughing Soul seemed to have captured some information from his words and immediately asked, "Have you learned some kind of internal energy from the NPCs in this scenario?" "You guessed right." Toby smiled proudly. This afternoon, Lin Chong and Su Tang came. Naturally, it was because of the same thing. I said, "I don't know where Master Lao Zhu and his wife went. Even the two of you didn't return last night. But I can be sure that the 4 of you are not dead." He saw the change in Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul's expression. So he added, "Don't worry, I wouldn't have told them about the team tab. Even if I did, they wouldn't have believed me, and they wouldn't have understood me." Lin Chong and Su Tang were quite polite. They said that there was no need to rush this. After the duel, they invited all of us from Broken Sword Chahitsu to visit the Yi family. "We'll talk about it then." Then they bade farewell. His lips curled into a smile. At the time, an idea came to me, and I told Lin Chong, "You told him to teach you the basic internal energy that was supposed to be taught to the leader?" Laughing Soul interrupted. "Yes," Toby replied. "It was almost the 3rd day. I predicted that the group would be very busy on the day of the duel, and after that, we would be leaving the scenario. So yesterday afternoon was the only chance, since Lin Chong promised to teach Brother Feng martial arts, and also made it clear that it was just a shallow set of internal energy that could be taught casually. I took advantage of the situation and told him to teach me the set of internal energy first, and then I would teach it to Brother Feng. This way, he wouldn't have to make a special trip for this matter." "Not bad. You managed to learn a skill," Laughing Soul commented. As Jean Fugue, that was beyond his ability. "What do you mean by Jean Fugue? Is Jean Fugue some kind of animal?" Toby grumbled. "Furthermore, what's wrong with the name? Even if it's a bit vulgar, it's a kind wish from my parents, a kind of wish. Your parents are up to no good." Xiao Tan chimed in from his side. "You can't say that. I believe most parents have their child's best interest in mind, and they're just doing bad things with good intentions, laughing Soul added. You pair. Atobi wanted to say adulterous couple, but that was stopped by the system. Before he could finish the sentence, he swallowed it back and changed his words. Oh well, I'm a professional player, after all. I'm not going to argue with a group like Underworld Frontline. Xiaotan patted Atobi on his shoulder. The friendship between men depends on the level of sarcasm between each other. Therefore, we're talking about you because we trust you. As he finished with a slap, Xiaotan was hit on the back of his head by Laughing Soul. I'm not a man, Laughing Soul said. Ha ha ha. Atobi laughed. And how good the relationship between a man and a woman is depends on how hard the woman hits and the man's tolerance. Xiaotan held the back of his head and changed the topic awkwardly. By the way, the internal energy that you've learned or skill, what kind of effect is it? The name of the skill is Qi Drawing in the Warm Wind. It's one of the basic internal energy skills of the Yi family. If it's turned into a skill, the effect is, as long as I meditate and guide my breathing according to a certain method, I can recover 1% of my stamina points every minute, and it won't affect my own stamina points recovery speed, Atobi replied. Not bad. This way, even if your stamina points drop to 0, you only need to meditate for half an hour to recover to about half. In an hour, you'll recover about 70 to 80%, Laughing Soul commented. That's a good skill. From how I see it, this wuxia scenario is a treasure trove of skills, Atobi said. That's not all I've gained. In the evening, the young master of the Tang sect came to visit. He said that to thank me for my kindness, he wanted to give me a large sum of money. However, I thought about it from another perspective. What's the point of that? I'm not going to stay in this world for long. Therefore, I said, why don't Brother Tang teach me some basic kung fu to practice? He agreed immediately and taught me the wind grabbing the moon. This is a kung fu for the folding fan. After it's turned into a skill, it can passively increase my speed of using the large iron fan. He paused before continuing. I've been practicing and experimenting in my room. Now, I can use the fan twice as fast as before. Oh, no wonder you're recovering your stamina points, Xiaotan said. Do you have any news from the leader? Laughing Soul asked. No, I was hoping for you to bring me some news, Atobi said. The main quest to eliminate the Bell Demon is still there. This means that they should still be dealing with a boss in the realm of the Bell, right? Laughing Soul nodded with contemplation. By the way, what have the two of you found so far? Atobi asked. After that, the three of them exchanged the information they had obtained in the guest room. Other than the information about the martial world and the gossip about Mu Rong Yin and Tang Sai's, the most important point was the secret of Lin Chong possessing the shapeless and formless power. Chapter 232. The sky was gray, and the fog was like silk. Dawn was breaking in the east, and the sun was slowly rising. Some orange-yellow light was spreading from the dark sky, and it was getting thicker and thicker. Yihai, who was meditating in the forest, opened his eyes, and the expression on his wrinkled face shifted slightly. Is that sword leader Lin? Yihai stood up slowly. He did not need to turn around to know who had appeared behind him. Lin Chong had a high position in the Yi family. Even Yihai had to refer to him as the sword leader. Yes, Lin Chong replied. Is it news about the master? Yihai asked. It was already the day of the duel, and he believed that Yi Cheng would be there soon. Yes. Lin Chong smiled coldly. The news is, Yi Cheng is dead. What did you say? Yihai gasped. He turned around immediately and saw a cold and savage face. Lin Chong was not joking. First, it was not funny, and second, he was not one to joke. Thank you for your hard work, Elder Yi. Lin Chang's tone was very calm, but his eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement and pride. You've helped me to stop those underlings and the spies sent by the imperial court. You've saved me a lot of trouble. What do you mean by that? Help you? Yihai could feel the murderous intent coming from a man, so he instinctively showed hostility. Ha! You still remember that handwritten order, right? Lin Chong smiled. Yihai's mind buzzed, and white light flashed before his eyes. He was aware of something, but he dared not believe it to be true. If it was an ordinary old man, he would have fainted long ago after receiving such a blow. You the master. Yi Hai's breathing was uneven, and his expression was one of shock and anger. Didn't I tell you? Yi Cheng is dead, Lin Chong replied with a relaxed tone. Lin Chong replied in a relaxed manner. If you're not senile, you should understand when you hear this sentence. It was me who wrote the letter of challenge, and it was also me who wrote that handwritten order. The order to forbid the disciples from getting close to the sword mound, and the order for you to guard this place. They were all my orders. Yi Hai was so anxious that his internal breathing became chaotic. He staggered back 2 steps. Impossible. How am I supposed to kill Yi Cheng? Lin Chong continued. Of course it's because my martial arts skills are above his. His murderous aura grew stronger and stronger, but he kept his hands behind his back. He had no intention of touching the sword at his waist. Compared to killing him, imitating his handwriting is more difficult. He smiled. I have followed Yi Cheng for many years, and I've spent many months studying his brushwork, hoping to achieve perfection in both form and spirit. But even if I have the confidence to deceive everyone, I can't guarantee that I can deceive your eyes. He slowly walked forward. When I handed the letter to you, I was really worried that you would see through it. Fortunately, in the end, you didn't express any objections and only obeyed. At the time, I did notice something strange about it. Yi Hai's whole body was shaking. He gritted his teeth. But I think, Lin Chong interrupted him with another laugh. You think killing the family head, starting a duel, giving a fake handwritten order, any of these things are impossible, right? Ha! He could not help but laugh. And all these things came from me, Lin Chong. So they're even more impossible, right? Lin Chong, you owe the Yi family a great debt of gratitude, Yi Hai said. Why would you *T? Lin Chang's face was suddenly filled with anger. A great debt of gratitude? Where did that come from? My martial arts skills were honed by myself. My Azure Sky sword position in Jianghu was earned by myself. I have served the House of Yi wholeheartedly for so many years. Isn't this what I deserve? The martial arts that I learned at the Yi family can be learned by any disciple who joins the Yi family. And the martial arts of the Yi family are only passed down to their own descendants, right? Yi Cheng and Yi Mu Han can learn the Yi family sword style and falling snow skill. So why can't I? Because I am an outsider, not a servant. At this point, Lin Chang's eyes narrowed, and the murderous aura around him rushed at the old man before him. A gust of sword energy shot out from Lin Chang's fingers. At that moment, having no sword was better than having one. The sword energy carried dozens of fallen leaves in the forest and flew at Yi Hai. When he attacked, Lin Chang's face was filled with mockery. What a joke, you old servant. You have served the Yi family for your whole life, and you still think you are owed a great debt of gratitude. Yi Hai had not even seen this move before, much less dodged it. He was instantly pierced through by the blade-like leaves, and he coughed out blood. Perhaps knowing that this was his destiny, Yi Hai calmed down after he was injured. Sigh, perhaps you have a point, but this has always been the way of the world. Yi Hai, was not born into a rich family, and I am not the descendant of some famous martial artist. This is my life, and I have no one to blame but myself. I know very well how the Yi family has treated me. They have not done anything wrong to me, and that is kindness. I am willing to repay them, and that is righteousness. What kind of world we live in, what kind of person we are, I cannot change my fate, but at least I live with a clear conscience. And you, Lin Chong, if the Yi family does not teach you Kung Fu, where did you go to train? Without the Yi family's reputation, how are you going to make a name for yourself in the martial world? Even if you think the Yi family has not done you any favors, does the Yi family have any grudge against you? It is your own ambition, but you make it sound like they owe you something. Shut up. Lin Chong raised his finger, and a gust of qi shot out from his fingertip and entered Yi Hai's chest. If you cannot change your fate, then accept your death. Lin Chong looked at the man coldly. I'm different from people like you. My fate is in my own hands, not the heavens. One breath later, dozens of energy swords burst out from various parts of Yi Hai's body, and blood bloomed. At that moment, Yi Hai understood why Yi Cheng would die. Lin Chang's kung fu was beyond Yi Hai's comprehension. There was probably no one in the world who could rival him. What are you planning to do? This duel, what is it? Blood poured out from Yi Hai's mouth, and the dozens of holes on his body were bleeding profusely. He leaned against the tree and slowly collapsed to the ground. He forced himself to ask the last question. Humph, go ask your master in hell. After saying that, Lin Chang turned to leave. Actually, even if he was willing to answer that question, Yi Hai would not hear the answer anymore. In the east, a red sun emerged, dyeing the light purple sky blue and gilding the roiling clouds with a golden edge. In the forest, under an old pagoda tree, an old man sat in a pool of blood. He was no longer going to wake up, but his eyes never closed. Chapter 233. Realm of the Bell, Lake Heart Island. Looking up, the sky was as dark as ink, and the forest on the island was shrouded in shadows. At that moment, there was a small bell hanging from the top of every tree in the forest. Those bells all emitted a faint silver light. They were like solitary lamps that lit up the dark night, creating a strange picture scroll. This is within my expectations. The bell demon smiled wickedly as she walked to stand before Feng Bujue. Now you should understand why the priest failed to defeat me, right? Feng Bujue held the wound on his waist and knelt on the ground, gasping for air. Cough. You're right. This is within my expectations. At this point, he started to laugh. From the beginning, I knew that you were very powerful. For an exorcist like the Bell of Jin Gang to fall into the hands of a demon like you, it is clear that cough. He coughed out a mouthful of blood. You are not to be trifled with. The Bell Demon no longer looked like a little girl. Her body was no different from an adult's, but she was shrouded in black smoke. From the shape and voice, she was female. Her voice sounded like she was in her 30s, but the other features were unknown. Humph. Since you already knew, why did you order your companions to split up with you? Bell Demon laughed. You were the one who told them to split up and buy as much time as possible, right? And you shouted it right in front of me. Is there something wrong with my strategy? Feng Bujue answered as he forced himself up from the ground. By then, Feng Bujue was at the end of his rope. Earlier, he had used Death Poker and Body Enhancement spell to force the Bell Demon to deal with him first. Along the way, he fought and retreated, stopping and activating skills, switching equipment, and using items. In the end, he managed to fight his way out of the Bell Demon's encirclement, and he even managed to whittle down the Bell Demon's life points. However, facing a boss that he could not defeat alone, his series of actions came with a price. At that moment, Feng Bujue had used up all 5 of his life points recovery potions, and none of his Death Poker cards remained. Even though he still had 1/3 of his stamina points left, he only had 26% of his life points left, and there was a bleeding effect in his status bar. Even if the Bell Demon hadn't given him the final blow, Feng Bujue wouldn't have lasted more than a few minutes. Of course, Feng Bujue still had SCP 500 on him, but he did not plan to use it. He felt that he might die in this situation, so using it would be a waste. If you knew how strong I was from the beginning, you should have worked with your friends to fight me. That way, you would have had a chance of winning, Bell Demon replied. Humph, but you told her to run separately from you. You want to buy time. Could it be that you think that dragging out the battle in my territory is actually beneficial to you? I can't say that it's advantageous. Feng Bujue replied calmly. I just chose a way to win against you. The Bell Demon's body froze. Oh, let me guess. At this moment, are you trying to say that you have some kind of powerful explosive on your body, and as long as you die, it will detonate and blow me to smithereens? No, Feng Bujue said. I just want to tell you that you've been poisoned. Is this your last joke? The Bell Demon smirked coldly. The effect of this poison is very weak. From your performance, whether it was the moment you were poisoned or after, you didn't feel anything. Feng Bujue said, if you were a traveler from another world like me, you would have noticed it with a glance at your status bar, but unfortunately, you're not. You make it sound so real, but compared to that, I'd rather believe that you would self-destruct, the bell demon replied with a smile. Obviously, she still did not believe it. There are two reasons for your confidence. First, you think that as a spirit, you should be immune to things like poison. Second, until this very second, you still haven't figured out how I poisoned you. Feng Bujue directly exposed her thoughts and continued, since victory is in my hands, I might as well tell you. First of all, I poisoned you with this. As Feng Bujue spoke, he revealed the goblin mask. When I was tied to the wooden stake to talk to you, you were already poisoned. This is called a poison attack, a method unique to us travelers from another world. You should know that our weapons, as long as it's not a pure physical attack, will be effective against a spirit like you. As he spoke, he hid his facial equipment again. Just like the submachine gun I used to shoot you. Those bullets have no effect on you, but the flames that occasionally trigger can hurt you, right? At that moment, the bells on the surrounding trees started to shake, and some even fell from the trees. This was the best proof that their owner was wavering. You've been chasing me for too long. Even if exercise won't worsen the effect of the poison in your body, I believe after 1 hour and 7 minutes. Feng Bujue calculated the time in his mind when he was running. Even if I only take away 1% of your life points every minute, you'll only have 33% left, combined with my attacks along the way. Feng Bujue sighed deeply. In any case, even if I die, you won't have time to kill my teammates. That's why I said it's 100% doable. Enough. The bell demon interrupted him. The so-called status, HP, and attributes that you mentioned have nothing to do with me, she said darkly. You just want to tell me that I'm about to be killed by you, right? Correct, Feng Bujue said. Suddenly, the bells in the forest quieted down, and the surroundings returned to silence. The black smoke dispersed, and the bell demon revealed herself. She was half a head taller than Feng Bujue, and she had the face of a European woman. Her features were sharp and beautiful. Her skin was lavender, and she had no hair. There were curly horns on both sides of her forehead. She didn't have any clothes on her body. From the lower half of her chest to her lower abdomen, there was a mane that looked like clothes. It covered some sensitive parts that weren't suitable to appear in the game. As for her lower body, there were 2 smooth and slender thighs connected to huge, hairy hooves below her knees. Feng Bujue shook his head and said earnestly, "This is too vulgar. This is too outrageous. What is the meaning of this? A tube top made of hair? Do you dare to have hair all over your body, or not at all?" He complained about the system's public display of body parts that were half covered and half exposed by the demon beauty. At the same time, he shamelessly fixed his gaze on the other party's towering chest, staring at the 2 semicircular balls that were not covered by the mane for a long time, without blinking. Humph, your partner is right. You're an extremely narcissistic person. The bell demon had obviously been monitoring the 2 players, and she knew their conversation clearly. As she spoke, she walked to stand before Feng Bujue. She looked down at him with a condescending gaze. Do you really want to tell me everything about your plan before I die? If you say something else to delay me, I might have died without knowing it, and your life would have been saved. She suddenly reached out with one hand to strangle Feng Bujue's neck and easily lifted him off the ground. And now, since I know that I'm going to die soon, why don't I drag one more person down with me? Damn it! Blood leaked out from Feng Bujue's lips. His face was purple, but he forced his eyes to widen. He continued to stare at the bell demon's chest at a 45-degree angle. Before his last bit of life points and dignity disappeared, he squeezed out the words through his teeth. It's really airtight. At that moment, there was a flash of light and blood splattered. The hand that grabbed Feng Bujue's neck suddenly lost its strength. Feng Bujue felt the pressure on his throat loosen, and then he collapsed to the ground. His life point stopped at 3%. The bell demon before him had lost her head. The female head with the goat horns flew into the sky and drew a parabola in the air before landing 7 or 8 meters away. The numerous bells in the forest disappeared several seconds later. The surrounding shadows began to dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the sky gradually brightened. The golden sun at dusk pierced through the darkness like a sharp knife, illuminating the small island. Before Feng Bujue could react to this series of changes, the headless body of the bell demon swayed twice before falling toward his brother Bujue. For a player with only 3% life points, being hit by an object that was at least 50 kilograms, the chance of being turned into white light was very high. Feng Bujue had survived a great ordeal. So how could he let this happen? He immediately rolled to the side to avoid the falling body. The moment his life points dropped below 2%, he popped another SCP, 500 in his mouth, and healed the bleeding status. Phew, that was close. Feng Bujue sat up and sighed in relief. The next second, his eyes met Passing Rain's condescending gaze. Damn it, you sure are well hidden. Passing Rain used her unique, icy tone to repeat Feng Bujue's last words. Hey, didn't I tell you to split up with me? Feng Bujue asked. If you stick close to the boss like this, what if the boss kills me when it only has 30% of its life points left and quickly locates your location? Then, won't the two of us be wiped out? Passing Rain acted like she did not hear him and continued to mumble, She's almost 9 meters tall, and she's half human and half goat. Feng Bujue replied with annoyance. Are you mocking my taste? Or are you just jealous? I'm just surprised. How crazy does a person have to be to have this kind of reaction when they're about to die? Passing Rain chuckled. This is just a game. It's not like I'm going to be strangled to death. Feng Bujue shrugged and replied in a relaxed tone. Passing Rain stared at his face for a few seconds and stopped herself. In the end, she did not say anything but said, perhaps. Then she slowly walked to his side, hugged her knees, and silently passed him 2 life points recovery potions. Chapter 234. Current quest completed. The main quest has been updated. Participate in the sword duel at Chonglin and survive until the formless demon is killed. When Feng Bujue and Passing Rain killed the bell demon, the system announced. The quest Defeat the Bell Demon was ticked off, and in its place, the above quest appeared. Xiao Tan, Laughing Soul, and Atobi knew that Lin Chong had mastered formless kung fu, but they had not met Lu Qingning, so they could not confirm that Lin Chong was the villain in this scenario. They could only guess that he was the boss based on the term formless. Feng Bujue and Passing Rain had not heard of the term formless kung fu before. They only knew that Lin Chong was a powerful NPC, so they could only guess that Lin Chong was the formless demon. Only after the 5 of them reunited could they confirm the target of the final quest. At that moment, in Chonglin Town, it was dusk on the 3rd day. There were only a few hours left until the full moon. However, the 2 great swordsmen still had not shown up. The nameless sword, Xie San, had disappeared the previous night. The god of swords, Yi Cheng, had not shown himself at all. That day, the disciples from the various sects who went to Copper Hill to gather information from Chonglin's sect did not return. Even the pigeons from the Flying Pigeon Gang had disappeared. None of them were able to enter Chonglin. The whole town seemed to have been sealed off from the world. Seeing that the sun was setting, the martial artists in Chonglin Town were confused. Could this still be a scam? But what was the benefit of this scam? To increase the economic prosperity of this ghost town? Did Chonglin give the Yi family a commission? Or did Yi Cheng have nothing better to do and decided to play with Xie San and the rest of the martial artists? These explanations did not make sense, but no one knew what was going on. Compared to confusion, anxiety was another emotion that rose in the people's hearts. But all they could do was wait for the unknown conspiracy to play out. On the night of the full moon in Chonglin Town, the moon was like frost, and it lit up the land like it was daytime. 1 mansion, 2 towers, 3 sects, 4 doors, and the rest of the martial artists who came alone. There were about 400 people in total. They all gathered at the main road before Chonglin Inn. Even the waiters in the inn came to the street out of curiosity, wanting to see if the 2 legendary heroes really had 3 heads and 6 arms. But until then, no one had seen Yi Cheng or Xie San. Suddenly, a human figure leaped onto the roof of a house in front of the inn. The man was standing about 3 meters off the ground. He wasn't too high, but he had a wide field of vision from where he stood. Furthermore, he could be seen by everyone on the street. Everyone its time. His voice was gloomy and hoarse, but it clearly reached everyone's ears. Just this point alone was enough to show the strength of his inner strength. Some of the Jianghu underlings on the street did not recognize this person, but the sect leaders of the various sects basically knew him. The one who spoke was Shang Fei, the shadowless sword, the most elusive of the 6 flowery swords. Shang Fei was wearing a black outfit, and his body looked even more chiseled under the moonlight. After he said that, he quickly took out a bamboo tube from his shirt. With a flip of his hand, he took out a lighter and lit the fuse at the bottom of the tube. Several seconds later, a flame shot out, and it flew into the sky with a hiss. As the saying went, a cloud-piercing arrow could summon an army of thousands. Shang Fei's flare might not be able to summon 10,000 horses, but it could summon an army of thousands. At that moment, another figure leaped onto the roof and asked, "Shang Fei, what is the meaning of this?" The newcomer was the owner of Octagon Spire, Ji Tong. The man liked to get involved in everything. "Let me answer that question for you." Lin Chang's voice suddenly rang out. His voice seemed to come from the sky, and it echoed on the street, causing people's hearts to quiver. At the same time, Lin Chang's figure flew out from the roof of the inn. Stepping on air, he floated to Shang Fei and Ji Tong's side. That day, Clear Sky's sword had changed from his usual white outfit to a black robe. He had 1 sword on his waist and 2 swords on his back. In total, he carried 3 swords with him. Lin Chang had sharp brows and bright eyes, but at that moment he looked wild. His hair was disheveled, and there was a layer of purplish-black mist covering his face. That afternoon, Lin Chang and Shang Fei disappeared. Even Yimu Han, Su Tang, and Miao Shaoqing had no idea where they had gone. No one would have thought that they would make their debut in such a manner at this moment. Nameless Sword, Snow-Breaking Sword. There were people in the crowd who recognized the 2 swords on Lin Chang's back. They were Xie San and Yi Cheng's swords. For a swordsman, especially a top swordsman, the sword was like their own limbs. As long as they were still alive, they would not hand their limbs over to others. But now, Lin Chang was actually holding 2 peerless godly weapons that belonged to others at the same time. This undoubtedly caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. After the message was sent, about 2,000 Imperial Secret Guards will depart from Copper Hill and enter Chonglin to surround this place. Unless I give the order, no one will leave Chonglin alive. When Lin Chang spoke, his voice was shaking. It showed the excitement and satisfaction he was feeling. He had been waiting for this day, this moment, for too long. "What did you say?" Ji Tong gasped. Most of the hundreds of people on the street reacted the same way. Lin Chang's words were like a clap of thunder on the ground, immediately causing a commotion. The sound of rustling clothes appeared, and another 4 figures appeared on the roof. They were Gong Sun Qian, the leader of Thousand Dawn Spire, Fa Ming, the leader of Shaolin Temple, Song Quan, and the leader of Xiao Yao faction, Zhong Lian. "Ba, Mr. Lin, do you mean what you say?" Fa Ming asked politely. Song Quan replied, "Is this Master Ye's order?" Zhong Lian asked, "Why are Hero Xie and Master Ye's swords with you?" Sword Leader Lin. It was Gong Sun Qian who got to the point. The government and the martial world should not interfere with each other. That has been a rule for many years, but you have colluded with the Imperial Guards. What do you mean by colluding? Lin Chang cut him off. "I am a citizen of the Ming Dynasty, and I am loyal to the government." "What do you mean by colluding?" His eyes scanned the 5 people other than Shang Fei. "You bunch of hypocritical old thieves. You all look so righteous, but you have your own sect. You refuse to be controlled by the government." He scoffed. "To be more polite, I call you leader, but to put it bluntly, you are just a bunch of scoundrels." His mocking remarks made the people below burst into an uproar. In an instant, the crowd was stirred up, filled with righteous indignation, and cursing incessantly. If it weren't for the leaders of the 3 sects standing on the 2nd floor, there would have been dozens of weapons thrown at Lin Chang. There's a saying that If you learn both civil and martial arts, you will serve the royal family. Lin Chong was unmoved. He leisurely, calmly, and righteously said, "Thanks to the appreciation of the commander of the Brocade Guards, Lord Qian, I, Lin Chong, have now pledged my allegiance to the imperial court and am loyal to the current emperor." Bah! Bastard! Traitor! I didn't expect Blue Sky Sword to be such a shameless person. After Lin Chong said that, there was another round of curses. The other three of the 6 flowery swords could no longer stand by and watch. The 3 of them jumped onto the roof of the house. Miao Shaoqing asked in shock, "Senior brother, are you crazy? What is going on? How could you pledge your allegiance to the government?" On the other hand, Yi Muhan was a straightforward person, and her words were a little harsh. She shouted, "Lin Chong, you're spouting nonsense here. Do you want the Yi residents to become the target of the entire martial arts world?" Her line of sight then shifted to the broken snow sword behind Lin Chong. "Where's my big brother? Why is his sword in your hands?" "Oh, junior sister Yi." Lin Chong slowly turned his head. "You came at the right time." As he spoke, he raised one hand, and a ball of qi rushed out. It was like a ferocious tiger coming down the mountain, rushing towards Yi Muhan. Yi Muhan had never seen internal energy released with such power and speed. She was caught off guard and was hit directly by a huge force. Blood spurted out of her mouth as she flew backward. "I think this should be enough to clear the relationship between the Yi family and me," Lin Chong said in a mocking tone. At the same time, he drew Blue Sky Sword from his waist and pointed it in Yi Muhan's direction. A ray of qi shot out and arrived first. "Oomph. As for your brother, you can meet him in the underworld," Lin Chong said with a smile. Yi Muhan, who was in midair, had no way to dodge. The qi of qi pierced through her neck and killed her instantly. When Su Tang and Miao Shaoqing saw this, they were shocked and stunned. They were completely helpless. Lin Chang's qi of qi was strong and fast. It was not something they could catch up to. Even if they wanted to jump forward and block it with their bodies, it would be too late. Lin Chong once again turned his face towards the 5 sect leaders who were shocked beyond words. Using his finger to point at the 2 swords behind him, he said, "Now you should understand how I obtained these 2 swords, right?" For a moment, there was complete silence. Unlike the tricks Feng Bujue and the others played, Lin Chong used a method that the martial artists of this world could understand and understand. What he used was internal energy, and what he used was martial arts. Every movement of his was governed by a law. It was because of this that he could make these people feel fear and despair. "Listen up." Lin Chong looked at the shocked faces and saw that the people who were cursing just now had all shut their mouths. He sneered disdainfully and said, "Tonight, taking advantage of the fact that all the sect leaders, experts, and seniors are gathered here, I will take the opportunity to attack. I will give you 2 choices." No one interrupted him. Everyone held their breaths as they listened to his words. "First, from today onward, I, Lin Chong, will be the leader of the martial arts world. In the future, everyone in the martial arts world will have to listen to my orders. Every sect, including every individual, will have to record their martial arts and hand it over to the government. No one will be allowed to hide it. Only those who hand over their martial arts will be allowed to leave Chonglin. And the second choice," Lin Chong smiled, "is death. That's preposterous." Ji Tong said, "So what if you lead 2,000 brocade guards to surround Chonglin? They're just a bunch of soldiers. How can they fight against hundreds of experts here? They don't need to fight against you. They only need to hold you back for a while," Lin Chong replied calmly. "I will do the killing. I'll kill you first." With a roar, a sword sliced through the air. The bamboo split into 2, and the sword came from the middle. Miao Shaoqing's fear was replaced by anger. His true qi reached its peak, and the bamboo sword whizzed through the air. Su Tang followed closely behind. She wanted to avenge her senior sister. She and Yi Muhan were like sisters, and Lin Chong was like a brother to her. When she saw her senior sister die at Lin Chang's hands, she could not help but be dazed. Even though she forced herself to stay awake with tears in her eyes, when the autumn orchid sword left its scabbard, Her killer move, Lone Orchid, was still sharp and merciless. Humph! What a joke! Lin Chang scoffed and returned the clear sky, sword to its scabbard. He crossed his arms and gripped the broken snow and nameless swords on his back. The two divine weapons were suddenly unsheathed. Their aura shook the 9 heavens and 10 earths, threatening in all directions. Just the pressure from a moment he unsheathed his sword was enough to make the 5 sect masters who were closer to Lin Chang take 3 steps back. Miao Shaoqing and Su Tang, who attacked, were blocked by the powerful sword aura. They were unable to get within 1 meter of Lin Chang. They were stopped by an invisible force in the air. The night of the full moon is the time when my divine power is at its peak. Even I didn't expect that I would be this strong. Lin Chang held a sword in each of his hands and placed them on both sides of his body. You people are too stupid. Looks like I have to make myself clearer. Yi Cheng is already dead. It was I who wrote the letter for Xie, and I was the one who released the news. From the moment you came to Chonglin, you fell into my trap. Chonglin town is surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, and the 2 roads leading out of town are blocked by the brocade guards. You won't be able to escape. I have more than enough time to kill every single one of you. He paused before continuing. The only variable to this plan is the spies sent by the divine constabulary, but none of them entered the town alive, so they won't be able to find anything. If you wish for a third party to join this mess, you'd better give up. Humph! Looks like you've come up with a good plan, Ji Tong said with a scoff. Ji Tong, I know what you're planning. I believe many people here have the same idea as you. Huh! Do you think you can kill me with the cooperation of your so-called experts? Then, the few hundred of you can charge out of Chonglin or temporarily hide in the mountains. Lin Chang exposed most of the people's thoughts. Ha ha! If you dare come at me, those who come first will die first. When most of you are dead, the rest will naturally hand over their sect's kung fu to beg for your life. At this point, layers of black energy bloomed around him. Instead of calling it murderous intent, it was more like a bloodlust. My fellow martial artists, didn't you come here to see the blood on the sword of a great expert? If that's the case, why don't you use your own blood to witness my swordsmanship? His expression was arrogant, and his purplish face was filled with a wicked smile. Of course, I allow you to submit. It's up to you to choose your own path. At that moment, Lin Chang's face no longer resembled a human's. A black and purple chi gathered on his forehead and did not dissipate. His eyes were also in the same state. They were extremely eerie, like a demon. Those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will die. Chapter 235. The 5 sect leaders of the 3 sects on the 2nd floor were all top experts with profound power and outstanding martial arts skills. It was hard to imagine that 5 of them would attack one person at the same time. But at that moment, that scenario became reality. Shang Fei had left Lin Chang's side and moved to the roof next to him. He was facing off against Miao Shaoqing and Su Tang. On Lin Chang's side, there was the sound of wind and thunder, and the shadows of swords and palms appeared. 5 incomparably swift silhouettes had already circled around him and started to fight. The 5 leaders were either as graceful as a swan or as powerful as a swimming dragon. Their teamwork was quite good as well. They looked after each other when they attacked and when they retreated. Therefore, experts were indeed experts. After a few short exchanges, they were able to understand each other's fighting style. Theoretically speaking, even if the person had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would not be able to hold on for long if he was surrounded by 5 of them. But the scary thing was the one who had the upper hand was Lin Chang, who was surrounded. In his left hand, breaking snow was as cold as frost. In his right hand, the nameless blade was as fast as lightning, sharp and vicious. Lin Chang's left and right hands were using 2 different sword styles, and they were Yi Cheng's Yi family sword style and Xie San's nameless quick blade. This magnificent feat made the 5 sect leaders and the Wulin people who were watching the battle on the street all dumbfounded. Left and right mutual combat was a legendary martial art in this world. According to legend, There was a heroine who could use both Chuanjin sword style and pure heart sword style at the same time. In the eyes of this group of people, this was already an impossible divine skill. But the scene before them was even more shocking. The two sword styles that the heroine was using were at least learned by her. And the two sword styles that Lin Chong was using were skills that he could not have learned. Then, there was only one explanation: small, formless skill. In the crowd, it was Mu Rong-yin who saw through it, and she gasped. What? Formless? What kind of kung fu is that? I've never heard of it. Obviously, even the experienced martial artists had not heard of this kind of kung fu. Small formless skill is a Taoist skill. It focuses on calmness and tranquility. When it was activated, it had no form and no trace could be found. Those who possess this skill, as long as they know the moves of other martial arts, rely on the incomparable power of the lesser formless skill. They can imitate other people's ultimate skills and even surpass them. Mu Rong-yin was quite dedicated to her role as an NPC commentator. However, her words only caused the crowd to panic even more. Even though Lin Chong was quite far away from Mu Rong-yin, he could hear every single word that came from the other side. He laughed loudly when he heard what Mu Rong-yin said. The two swords in his hands drew a semicircle in the air, and with a burst of sword chi, he easily forced the 5 people around him back. Your guess is reliable, but unfortunately, it's wrong. Lin Chongyan said, my skill is 100 times stronger than the minor phaseless method. Before his voice fell, his figure moved, and in an instant, he was in front of Song Quan, the head of Renwu's sect. Lin Chong tossed the nameless sword into the air, raised his right hand, and slammed it towards Song Quan's abdomen with a powerful strike of stellar energy. You want to take us down one by one? Song Quan did not dodge. His body was filled with dense internal energy, and he was the best at borrowing force to counter force. Therefore, he was very confident that he could take Lin Chang's attack and counter it. Humph! You asked for it. Turn the force into the force and return it back to yourself. 4 ounces to 1,000 caddies. After a breath, with a bang, a horrifying scene appeared. Song Quan's upper body was smashed into a bloody mist. This head of Renwu's sect, who was fully prepared and confidently channeling his chi for a skill, was killed by a palm strike. When Song Quan's body parts below his waist rolled off the roof, Lin Chong calmly reached out and caught the nameless sword that was falling from the air. Not a bad idea. But first, you have to have 4 ounces, Lin Chong said with a smile. Second, my skill cannot be heavier than 1,000 caddies. The crowd was stunned. Only one person burst out laughing after hearing his words. Clap, 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 clap. That person even clapped for Lin Chong. Good, very good. As expected of the formless and void technique. Impressive. Feng Bujue emerged from the crowd. Or rather, the people around him moved away from him. Oh, it's you. When Lin Chong saw Feng Bujue, his expression shifted slightly. Master Feng is indeed extraordinary. Someone who doesn't even have the common knowledge of Kung Fu managed to name the Kung Fu that I practice, he said darkly. People like you, the fewer of them there are in this world, the better. Yes, someone like me. Feng Bujue answered calmly. Since I am different from the rest, I have to die. Ha ha. The two of them looked at each other and laughed as if there was no one else around. Good. Lin Chong, you're the only true hero in this so-called Jianghu, Big Brother Lin. The one who knows me best is Feng Bujue. In this world, I only know you, Big Brother Feng. You're the only one who truly lives a free and easy life. After saying that, the two of them laughed again. Lin Chong had a demonic aura around him. He was ferocious and frightening. Big Brother Bujue was crazy and unpredictable. Regardless of their abilities, in terms of aura, the two of them were not in the same dimension as the others. Feng, do you want to join Lin Chong and become a lackey of the imperial court? Gong Sun Li suddenly shouted from the crowd. This guy was indeed very cunning. He found an opportunity to kill Lin Chong. I understand now. Broken Sword Chahitsu is a spy sent by the imperial court. Si Yanran's reaction was not slow. She immediately filled in the gaps and slandered Lin Chong. Huh? Feng Bujue turned around. He, do you think the two of you have the right to speak in this kind of situation? At that moment, there was no one standing around Feng Bujue. Gong Sun Li and Si Yin Ran leaped to stand before him. They formed a triangular formation and looked like they were about to fight. Gong Sun Li wanted to strike while the iron was hot. He was ready to incite the crowd to kill Feng Bujue. Oof. You can't deny it anymore. There's so many Jianghu people here today. You just want to... There's so many Jianghu people here. Why are the two of you in such a hurry to jump out? Feng Bujue interrupted. Are you feeling guilty? Or do you have *T on you? As he spoke, he had already taken out his submachine gun from his bag. From Gong Sun Li and Si Yinran's point of view, Feng Bujue had only waved his hand in front of his chest, and an exquisite-looking object appeared in his hand. It did not look like a weapon at all, so they wondered what it was for. They would never be able to guess the answer to that question because Feng Bujue pulled the trigger without hesitation and killed both of them. The second-in-command of Thousand Dawn Spire and his wife had become two corpses in the blink of an eye. The wounds on their bodies were only a few charred holes, but blood was gushing out from those holes. The corpses were still twitching eerily on the ground. Gong Sun Qian, your wife had an affair with Wang Ao. 2 nights ago, she killed him to silence him. I saw it. So she and Gong Sun Li destroyed the corpses and escaped. They wanted to frame me. The next day, I beat them at their own game. I made up a story about how I killed Wang Ao, so they couldn't do anything about it. After killing the man, Feng Bujue immediately roared at Gong Sun Qian, who was standing on the roof in shock. It's up to you whether you want to believe me or not. After tonight, if you are still alive and want to seek revenge, I will gladly oblige. After pausing for a few seconds, Feng Bujue continued, Now, you all of you, if you want to leave this place alive, get out of my way. Lin Chong is not someone you can deal with. He rolled up his sleeves, looking eager. Let the professionals... Gong Sun Qian suddenly screamed. This Spire Master's reaction time was a little slow. When Feng Bujue finished the second paragraph, his mind had just digested the first paragraph. Then, he chose not to believe it. Instead, he was furious. Feng Bujue, you killed my junior brother and tarnished my wife's reputation. Give me your life. In the blink of an eye, Gong Sun Qian gathered his anger and channeled the Thousand Dawn Sutra to its peak. He descended from the sky and punched out with both fists, aiming for Feng Bujue's face. At this moment, Gong Sun Qian had lost his mind. This attack was not about strategy, and he did not leave any room for retreat. He used all of his power, swearing to smash Feng Bujue into meat paste. Sigh, an ignorant man who doesn't know the big picture. A soft voice sighed. When the voice arrived, the person arrived as well. A white shadow flashed out from the entrance of Changlinen. He approached like a ghost. His speed was impossibly fast. Even Lin Chong was shocked. In the blink of an eye, Feng Bujue was dragged away by the white shadow. Gong Sun Qian's fists landed in the air, and almost at the same time, someone pushed him lightly from behind with a hidden force. This push was ingenious. It borrowed Gong Sun Qian's own strength, so he was unable to stop, and he crashed into the ground. Gong Sun Qian could only clench his fist to support himself. He flipped in midair for a few rounds before he managed to regain his balance. Even though he looked fine on the surface, he was actually heavily injured internally. The White Shadow's kung fu was obviously more powerful than the Thousand Dawn Spire's master. In that brief exchange, Gong Sun Qian had lost half of his combat ability. It's him. How is this possible? Who is he? Amidst the commotion, the manager of Changlin appeared. Feng Bujue cupped his fists and said to the shopkeeper with a fawning expression, The shopkeeper is mighty. I, Feng Bujue, am impressed. Humph. The shopkeeper snorted. That thing in your hand is really powerful. If you didn't guard against it, I'm afraid that Hero Lin would have fallen into your trap. No. Feng Bujue smiled. He raised his gun and fired at Lin Chang's direction. Ji Tong, F.A. Ming, and Zhong Yin were so shocked that they jumped away from the roof. Lin Chong, on the other hand, stood there motionless. A black wall of air bloomed around him, deflecting all the bullets from the submachine gun. Even if he was not prepared, the faceless demon heart in his body would have blocked such a fatal attack. Fong Bujue explained calmly. At this moment, the onlookers were stunned again and again. In the minds of those Wulin people, there were basically two questions. First, this is actually a fight between immortals, right? Two, is this an illusion caused by the collision of air? Or am I drunk? Chapter 236. At the same time, the battle between Shang Fei, Su Tang, and Miao Shaoqing continued. After a few rounds, the two sides were evenly matched. Shang Fei's martial arts had improved greatly thanks to Lin Chang's guidance. Originally, he was confident that he could defeat the two people in front of him. However, due to the continuous changes around him, he was uneasy and hesitant in his attacks. That was why he was evenly matched with Su Tang and Miao Shaoqing. At this moment, another figure arrived swiftly and leaped onto the roof. Her movements were light and agile. It was the falling plum sword, Lu Qingning. Heroine Lu joined the battle against Shang Fei as soon as she arrived. She did not say a word. She only exchanged glances with Su Tang and Miao Shaoqing, and they immediately understood what she meant. The three of them immediately performed the three swords combination formation. Among the 6 flowery blades, the plum, orchid, and bamboo blades were the closest. They often studied martial arts together. As time passed, they figured out a set of nameless sword formation. This formation took the strengths of the 3 swordsmen and complemented each other's weaknesses. It was very powerful. Unexpectedly, the first time they used it in a real battle, they would use it on their senior. Shang Fei used his ghost shadow swordplay to fight 1 against 2. He circled left and right and dodged. He was originally at ease, but with Lu Qingning's appearance, he was quickly at a disadvantage. After a few moves, the sword formation was filled with killing intent. Su Tang attacked with solitary flower, admiring herself. Miao Shaoqing used sifting wind and moon. Lu Qingning suddenly used snow-cutting ice as a killer move. With a few shouts, Shang Fei was hit by a sword on his left and right ribs and on his back. As the saying goes, once the beer is damaged, all the meridians will be destroyed. Although he did not die on the spot, the outcome was clear. On the other side, Lin Chang completely ignored Shang Fei. He did not comment on Feng Bujue's attack. Instead, he looked at the innkeeper and commented, "Finally, a real master is here. Interesting. Tell me your name." "Humph." The other party replied with a strange sneer. The eunuch of the Imperial Envoy's Eastern Depot, Chao Qin. There was an obvious change in Lin Chang's expression. His ferocious look immediately diminished by 30%. "So it's Eunuch Chao. My apologies for my disrespect." Once he heard that the other party was a 4th-rank official of the Imperial Court, he knew that he absolutely could not offend him. Thus, he changed his attitude. "I'm here to put down the rebels." "That's enough." Chao Xin waved his hand and interrupted him. "Lin Chang, I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. The letters you exchanged with Qian Ning, the commander of the embroidered uniform guards, have long been investigated by our Eastern faction guards. I know exactly what you want to do. Otherwise, why would I come to Chonglin before everyone else?" His words answered a question that had been bothering them for a long time. Now that he thought about it, it made sense. Only the power of the Eastern Palace would be able to turn an abandoned inn in a ghost town into the Chonglin Inn before him in such a short amount of time. "Master Chao, since we are all serving the Imperial Court, why don't we work together?" Lin Chang said. "Hugh, Hugh, 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 Hugh." Chao Xin used his feminine voice to laugh shrilly and interrupted Lin Chang. "Serving the Imperial Court, you say?" He smirked coldly. "But in my eyes, this is nothing more than a business deal between you and Qian Ning." Feng Bujue added, "After the Sword Symposium in Chonglin, Qian Ning will receive hundreds of ultimate martial arts, and you will get the position of the leader of the martial arts world. In the future, you can use the power of the martial arts world to help Qian Ning remove the dissidents from the Imperial Court, and he can use the power of the embroidered uniform guards to help you secure your position in the martial arts world." He paused and asked, "No matter how you look at it, This whole thing is just a business deal between two ambitious people for personal gain. How can it be confused with serving the imperial court? What Feng Bujue was saying now was something he had already told Chao Xian at the inn. Other than that, he had helped Unit Chao do some calculations and successfully made him believe that if Qian Ning and Lin Chang's plan succeeded, it would be a disaster for the martial arts world. It would be very bad for the Eastern Palace, and it might even threaten the royal power. Chao Xian, on the other hand, even though there were many examples of evil eunuchs in the profession, Chao Xian was one of them. But Chao Xian was the kind of eunuch who was more loyal. Of course, that was only relative. He was indeed loyal to the king, but to the enemy, he was as cold as winter. In any case, this NPC was soon tricked by Feng Bujue to join the same side. Actually, Chao Xian did not plan to ruin Lin Chang's plan. His trip to Chonglin was to monitor the progress of the plan and to meet Lin Chang. He wanted to see if the man was as powerful as described in the letters. If this eunuch Chao wanted to ruin the plan from the very beginning, he would not have come alone and hired a bunch of normal people to be the workers at the inn. With Chao Xian's ability, he had many ways to make Lin Chang disappear from the world 1 month ago. Even if it was a head-on clash, with the cooperation of this eunuch Chao and the few leaders from the Eastern Palace, they had the confidence to take down Lin Chang. However, the time to make the move could not be on a full moon. Not long before the duel, Feng Bujue returned to Chonglin to meet up with his teammates to exchange information. He also used the Bell of Jin Gang to confirm Chao Xian's identity. Feng Bujue then interacted with Chao Xian and changed his mind. Then, he cooperated with Chao Xian and came up with a series of plans. Lin Chang, little brother Jin, and little brother Wang from Broken Sword Chahitsu have already taken my command tablet and left the town from 2 different roads to pass on the message, Chao Qin said. The Qinhu leading the troops won't dare to act rashly after seeing the command tablet from the Eastern faction guards. They won't be coming tonight. He raised his voice and said to the people on the street, "Everyone, Lin Chang has fallen into the demonic path, and his demonic power is not something normal kung fu can match. If you do not wish to die, leave Chonglin immediately. No one will stop you on the way, and you can enter Copper Hill safely." Chao Xian then turned around and purposely said to Gong's son Qian, who was several meters away, "Leader Gong's son, as the leader of a faction, you should know the bigger picture. Only Brother Feng and the rest can solve this problem. No matter whether what he said is true or not, now is not the time for you to seek revenge." When he said that, many people from the 2nd and 3rd tier factions had already started to run, and the street became rowdy and chaotic. The people from the 1st tier factions had to be mindful of their reputation. Even though they wanted to leave, they were too embarrassed to run like the rest. They decided to stay for a while and wait until they returned to Copper Hill. Then, they would play the pot, calling the kettle black. To everyone's surprise, Ji Tong walked forward and advised Gong's son Qian, "Leader Gong's son, this eunuch Chao is right. We are in danger of the destruction of the righteous path. Why don't we let Master Feng focus on dealing with Lin Chang? The conflict between you and him can be discussed at another time. You'd better lead your disciples out of town first. Protecting their lives is more important." Gong's son, Qian, knew Ji Tong the best. After all, they were mortal enemies. He knew very well that at this moment, Ji Tong's mind was only thinking about running. Such a profound and righteous statement could be summed up in this sentence: "Brother, I'll give you a way out. Hurry up and run, and then I'll catch up." "Okay, since Leader Ji says so." Gong's son, Qian, turned to Feng Bujue. "Master Feng, farewell." He scoffed and waved at his disciples. They left without even caring about the bodies of their wives and juniors. Ji Tong looked as if his plan had worked. He waved as well. "Disciples of Octagon Tavern, follow me." As he spoke, he summoned a dozen people and left with him. Seeing that Thousand Dawn Spire and Octagon Tavern had left, the people from the other sects and the martial artist who came alone all followed. In just a few minutes, the streets were almost empty. Lin Chang, who was on the roof, watched the scene in front of him silently. He did nothing to stop it. When he heard Chow Xin say that the embroidered uniform guards would not be coming, he knew that tonight's plan had failed. Even if he chased after them like crazy, it would be useless. At least half of them could escape. Moreover, facing Chow Xin and Feng Bujue, as well as the people from Broken Sword Chihitsu who had yet to show up, he could not let his guard down. Who knew if Feng Bujue would take out something similar to the strange box in his hand? Big Brother Lin. Feng Bujue raised his head and said, Qian Ning was instigated by you for his own ambition. He caused a disaster in the martial arts world and broke the rule of not interfering with each other for many years. Soon, he will not be able to protect himself and will not be able to help you. As for you, you have become the public enemy of the martial arts world. The other powers in the court will not tolerate you. He raised a finger. There is only one way out for you now. Change your name and live in seclusion in the mountains. Live in seclusion? Lin Chang's purplish-black anger gathered on his face again. Feng Bujue, let me tell you what kind of path I want to take. Lin Chang replied solemnly. First, I will immediately kill you and this damn eunuch. Then, I will kill every high official in the court who knows about this and can use this matter to overthrow Qian Ning. Then, I will continue my trade with him. His expression turned vicious. At most, I will visit each sect one by one. Those who hand over the martial arts manual and respect me as the leader will be spared. As for those who disobey, I will destroy their sects, he said in a very calm tone. It's just a matter of a little more work and a little more time. The path before me will not be blocked by any of you. Then, there is no other way. Feng Bujue said as he put away the machine gun and took out the anti-gravity gun from his backpack. Then, he took out a lighter and a small bamboo ball from his shirt pocket. After he lit the bamboo ball, he used the reflector to shoot it into the sky. This action was undeniably a signal to his friends, but Lin Chang did not know that there was such a thing as a sniper rifle in this world. He thought that Feng Bujue was calling for help. 2 seconds later, several hundred meters away, a gunshot tore through the sky. Laughing Soul did not aim at the man's head. After all, her marksmanship was not great yet. If she aimed at the man's head, there was a 40% chance that she would miss. Even though the gun in her hand was good, the shooting distance, angle, wind speed, and the view under the moonlight were all good, but there would not be a second chance like this. The first shot was the easiest to succeed. Once the enemy was hit by such a long-distance attack, they would be prepared. Therefore, this shot could not be missed, and it was safest to hit the man's torso. As long as she could injure the boss with this shot, even if all the attacks missed, it would be worth it. When Lin Chang first started practicing shapeless and formless, he was consumed by the devil in his heart, and that was how his personality changed. Above his main consciousness, there was an even higher level of consciousness, and that was the formless demon monarch. At certain moments, when Lin Chang's consciousness was unable to protect himself, the devil in his heart would do it for him. The night of the full moon was when the will and power of the formless demon monarch were at their strongest. Faced with this sudden and fatal attack, the formless demon monarch was at his peak. In an instant, a black air shield was formed, blocking the trajectory of the sniper bullet. However, be it in terms of speed or power, this bullet was not something that could be compared to in the cold weapon era. After the bullet paused, it pierced through the shield and drilled into Lin Chang's chest. Unfortunately, he was shot in the heart. The sky was hazy, and there was no wind. Some snow fell quietly. One morning 30 years ago, in front of the Yi family, 2 figures, one old and one young, slowly walked over. The child looked no older than 10, and the jacket and pants that he was wearing were old. His face and hands were red from the cold, but there was a determination in his eyes that did not match his age. Beside the child was an old man with a head full of white hair. "We're here, Chang-er." The old man stopped, but he did not let go of the child's hand. Xiao Lin Chang raised his head to look at his only remaining relative and asked in a young voice, "Grandpa, will you come to visit me in the future?" Grandpa shook his head. "I'm at a place far, far away. I won't be able to visit you." He was already at the end of his life, and he knew that he did not have much time left. It was his last wish to send his grandson to the Yi family. Then, Chong, or we'll go with Grandpa. I won't go to the Yi family to learn martial arts. Xiao Lin Chang's eyes were filled with tears. Although he was much more mature than his peers, he was still a child. Grandpa squatted down and patted his grandson's head. Chong, don't say such things again. Xiao Lin Chong finally burst into tears. He knew that parting was close at hand. Sigh. Grandpa sighed deeply. Grandpa has no money or power. I can't give you anything. The old man choked as he spoke, and his eyes were filled with bitterness and helplessness. Xiao Lin Chang's parents were insignificant people in the martial arts world. Logically speaking, Xiao Lin Chang's background was far from enough to enter the Yi family. However, his parents had both died in the battle against the Green Lotus cult a few months ago. Xiao Lin Chang's grandfather was old and terminally ill. It was impossible for him to raise this child. No matter what, the Lin couple had made a certain contribution to the martial arts world. They could not just watch the Lin family's orphan freeze to death on the streets without anyone caring, right? That was why the Yi family made an exception and accepted Xiao Lin Chang as their disciple. It was still snowing. Grandpa let go of Xiao Lin Chang's hand and stood up shakily. Your father and I have been mediocre all our lives. We have to fight for everything on our own. After a lifetime of hard work, we're just pawns at other people's beck and call. No one will remember us, even if we die. He sighed. Sigh. This is fate. Grandpa looked up at the Yi family's gate and plaque. Chong. The Yi family is the best in the martial arts world. As long as you practice martial arts diligently and behave properly, you will definitely achieve great things in the future. You have to cherish the opportunity that your parents exchanged their lives for. He stopped talking and swallowed all the words he wanted to say. He was afraid that his grandson would change his mind and change his mind. Xiao Lin Chong looked at his grandfather's back with mixed feelings. He was still a child who was not even 10 years old, but the things he had to bear were too many and too heavy. Tears could carry away sadness. If tears could not carry away sadness, he would bury it with laughter. In the end, Xiao Lin Chong wiped away his tears and forced a smile. Grandpa, don't worry. Chong, I will definitely succeed in the future. I want to be the best in the world, the best in the martial arts world. No matter how far you go, my name will be heard there. As he said that, he turned around and walked forward. He knocked on the door that would change his fate. Huh, Xiao Lin Chong panted. He lowered his head and looked at the left side of his chest. There was a large black hole there. The wound was bloody. A large amount of blood and flesh had spurted out of his chest and scattered on the tiles below his feet. Laughing Soul used a large caliber sniper rifle, and the bullets fired from such a gun could not even be blocked by a steel plate, much less a human body. Passing Rain, who was Laughing Soul's spotter, a modern sniper team was usually made up of 2 people, and the spotter was equipped with an automatic weapon and a scope for self-defense. Also used a pair of binoculars. Laughing Soul had bought it from a store to see Xiao Lin Chang's wound. She said, success. Fatal wound. Chao Qin, Shang Fei, Su Tang, Miao Xiaoqing, and Lu Qingning were all stunned. They stood where they were and looked at the ghastly wound that suddenly appeared on Xiao Lin Chang's chest. Ha! Xiao Lin Chang's mouth was bleeding, but he was still laughing. It's just a small wound. Cough. He coughed out another mouthful of blood. I've already mastered the art of Kung Fu. How can I be hurt by such a small wound? Cough. He used his hand to cover the wound and tried to use his qi to heal it. Unfortunately, this was not the kind of wound that could be healed. It'll be fine. I can kill all of you soon. I still have many things to do, and he mumbled to himself, and his voice became smaller and smaller. The black and purple energy on Xiao Lin Chang's body gathered on the surface of his body. He used this demonic energy to move his body. He jumped down from the roof and walked step by step toward Feng Bujue and Chao Qin. He was still mumbling, I'm the best in the world. I want to be the king of the martial arts world. Is that the dream that you've been chasing? Feng Bujue asked with a smile. Just in case, he took out Death Poker. After this period of recovery, he could use the shield again. Do you think it's funny? Xiao Lin Chong approached him slowly, leaving a trail of blood behind him. We all have stupid dreams, Feng Bujue replied sadly. What's wrong with that? He said seriously. I do admire your persistence, and I don't dislike the way you do things. However, I have to tell you that your weakness has doomed you to failure. Huh? How dare you say that I? Xiao Lin Chong struggled to speak. Feng Bujue interrupted him. Of course you are weak. You are so weak that you can't even defeat your own inner demon. You chose to rely on it to gain more power. As he spoke, he took out a black bell with a golden handle from his backpack. 2 nights ago, even the ghosts on the mountain stayed away from you. Didn't you have any doubts at that time? He raised the bell of Jin Gang and said, Your soul has long been fragmented. Even if you don't die here today, in less than a year, you will be completely devoured by your inner demons and become a walking corpse. He paused for a moment. This bell is your nemesis. Even if the attack just now didn't hit you, as long as I work together with the factory manager, you still have no chance of winning. Clang, clang. Feng Bujue shook the bell of Jin Gang twice. Xiao Lin Chong, who was 3 meters away, was forced to kneel down by an invisible force. The black energy on his body surged wildly like a dying beast. Ah, ah, ah. Xiao Lin Chong laughed bitterly. Then, he looked up to the sky and howled. His howl echoed through the night sky, expressing the helplessness and desolation of the world. Even Lu Qingming, Su Tang, and Miao Shaoqing looked at him sympathetically. A few seconds later, the black energy dissipated completely. Xiao Lin Chang's face was unusually pale. His eyes were filled with sorrow. Brother Feng, do you really think that I am a hero? Feng Bujue did not answer. He merely raised his hand, and with his palm facing up, he pointed at the empty street beside him and revealed a mocking smile. This street was originally filled with heroes, masters, and heroes. However, at this moment, only a lunatic and a eunuch were left. Ha ha! Ha ha! Xiao Lin Chong collapsed. He looked up to the sky and laughed. Finally, he closed his eyes in relief. With a smile on his face, he said weakly, This is life. Chapter 237. April 19th, Saturday, Feng Bujue's home. Xiao Tan, Master Bao, and Brother Ju, these 3 good friends, were sitting side by side on the sofa in the living room, watching the TV screen in front of them. The coffee table in front of them was filled with takeout. These items were obviously Brother Ju's royalties and the remuneration for participating in the TV show. Feng Bujue had already synced a video file from his computer to the TV, so he could watch it directly. The content of this file was the episode of I Am a Writer that he recorded a week ago. This episode will be broadcast next Friday. This is an hour-long pre-edited version. When it's officially broadcast, the content should be shortened to 45 minutes. Feng Bujue raised the remote and said before pressing the button, Are you sure you want to watch this? Cut the crap. Master Bao said, Hurry up. My wife is waiting for me to go home for dinner. Xiaodan was already excited. Hurry up and play it. This is the first time I've seen someone I know on TV on a variety show. Okay. Feng Bujue pressed the play button. Strange and blurry images began to appear on the TV screen like a bell at midnight. However, this phenomenon only appeared for a second or two before it stopped. It was probably a problem with the file. After all, this was not an official TV show, so it was normal for there to be some flaws in the editing. The image came out. The camera zoomed in from above and zoomed in from the full view of the stage to the center. In this day and age, the lighting technician of a large variety show was crazy. If they didn't blind the audience, they would be too embarrassed to go out and greet their peers. This show was the same. The lights on the stage flashed at high speed, and the camera started to shake with the rhythm. However, the contestants' area was pitch black. The 7 contestants sat side by side, each one about a meter apart. There was a control panel in front of them. The lights shone at a strange angle, allowing the audience to clearly see the silhouettes of the 7 contestants, but not their faces. As the music started, a host walked onto the stage. Compared to a certain fatty in Death Quiz who went on stage with a horse dance, this host was much more stylish. He wore a casual suit and headphones as he walked calmly to the center of the field. After standing still, he opened his arms. The lights stopped flashing and focused on him. The host bowed slightly and said, "Welcome, I'm a writer. I'm a host, Oscar." 2 seconds later, the lights illuminated the entire stage and the audience. However, the contestants' seats were still dark, as if they were filming a horror movie. Oscar was obviously a stage name. Anyway, in this day and age, the audience could accept any kind of strange name, as long as you didn't find someone called Jean Fuguet to host. All right, everyone, I'm sure you can't wait any longer. Oscar turned to the contestants and raised his arm. Out of the 7 contestants today, 6 of them have already been seen in the last episode. I believe many of you will be able to recognize them from their shadows. Why is this guy's second sentence? I'm sure everyone can't wait any longer. Xiao Tan, who was sitting in front of the TV, asked in confusion, because in the official broadcast version, before Oscar says that, he has to read out a long list of sponsors. Feng Bujue explained, in the recorded variety shows nowadays, the content is usually recorded separately. Since they have to be read out clearly and the timing has to be controlled, there might be a few NGs. He paused for a moment before continuing. Every time after the commercial break, there has to be a specific advertisement message from the sponsors. The length is comparable to a crosstalk. These are not recorded live. They are recorded separately. I see. It's not easy being a host. Xiao Tan sighed. Hey, Master Bao reminded him. It's time to introduce the contestants. Be quiet. On the screen, the first contestant's area lit up. It was a bespectacled young man in his 30s. He was on the plump side and dressed casually. Oscar took out an inscription card from his suit pocket and started to introduce the contestants. Of course, he used a pen name. Contestant number 1, Xian Tianzhou, well-known web novelist. He's 32 years old this year and has written 10 web novels with more than 2 million words. His works are very popular and have been adapted into games, movies, TV series, and so on. He's one of the few writers with an annual income of more than 10 million. The chief editor's comment, his writing is smooth, his characters are rich, and the plot is interesting. He's the #1 online fantasy writer today. The host paused for a few seconds after he finished speaking. The live director did not need to make any gestures as the audience was already applauding. Then, the second contestant's area was lit up. He was also a young man with a medium build. He looked a few years older than Xian Tianzhou. The style of his glasses and his clothes looked more mature. Contestant number 2, Ba Xiangping, well-known web novelist. He's 33 years old this year and has written 5 historical novels. The chief editor's comment, his knowledge is solid, his writing style is majestic, and his works have a deep foundation. It can be said that he has thousands of classics in his mind, and his writing style is fascinating. Ba Xiangping received the same applause and cheers. Then, Oscar continued to introduce contestant number 3, Vegetables and Fruits, well-known web novelist and a holder of many records. He started writing when he was 18 years old, and his works are mostly urban fantasy. In 10 years, he's published more than 27 million words, and there's no record of him not updating for a single day. He's always at the top of the sales charts of major mobile reading websites. The chief editor's comment, his writing style is smooth, and he's good at grasping the rhythm and tension of the plot. He's the king of no strings, a hard-working genius. Vegetables and Fruits is 28 years old and quite handsome. He also has the most fans. From the moment he appeared, the audience cheered. Contestant number 4, and our only female contestant, Mo Buxiang. The age of the girl is a secret. Oscar read this and smiled at the camera. Laughter came from the audience. Mo Buxiang had a ponytail. She looked quiet and was on the thin side. Although she was not a beauty, she was quite photogenic with makeup. She started writing 5 years ago. She's written 6 novels, covering 6 themes: supernatural, xinxia, urban, romance, games, and history. All of them have been published in physical books. She's the female author with the highest income last year. Oscar continued. The chief editor's comment. Her writing style is elegant and varied. She deserves the title of a talented woman. Another round of applause came from the audience. Even though Mo Bouchon's number of die-hard fans could not compare to the previous contestants, there were many male audience members who viewed her as their second favorite author. Another contestant's booth was lit up. Contestant number 5 was also a man. He was around 30 years old and had a classic black mop hairstyle. He wore sunglasses indoors and looked quite muscular. Contestant number 5, I'm going on stage. Web novelist, editor of a well-known sports magazine. He's written 13 short stories about sports, and his works are mainly realistic. His setting is strict and professional, and he's well-liked by sports fans, Oscar said. The chief editor's comment, an author with a deep foundation and a thoughtful work. He's undeniably outstanding in the same genre. After the applause, contestant number 6 revealed his real face. He looked quite similar to Xian Tianzong, from his appearance to his fashion sense, but he was a few years older. Contestant number 6, Soda, a well-known web novelist who specializes in supernatural stories. He's written 7 novels, and all of them are classics. He's well known in the industry and is known as the master of horror. Oscar said, the chief editor's comment. Each of Soda's stories can evoke the deepest fear in the reader's heart. The plots are meticulously crafted and unique. The master of horror is definitely worthy of his reputation. Oh, he's coming. Seeing this, Xiao Tan was excited because Brother Ju was coming on stage. Suddenly, the camera zoomed in to give Oscar a close-up. Ladies and gentlemen, contestant number 7 is a newcomer this season. This stage is cruel. Every season, someone will be eliminated, and the elimination rate for newcomers this season is as high as 50%. He created a tense atmosphere, making the audience look forward to the newcomer's identity. So, will he be able to stay on this stage? Or will he be like a shooting star that flies across the sky, disappearing in a flash? Let's wait and see. There was the sound of drums, and the spotlights flickered. In the end, the whole place was plunged into darkness. The drums stopped, and the lights stopped on Feng Bujue. Even though Feng Bujue was looking at the camera with lifeless eyes, the audience cheered and applauded. Actually, when the show was being recorded, the audience and the contestants entered the studio at the same time, so they saw my face a long time ago. Feng Bujue explained in front of the TV. Their reaction, as if they saw a monster appear, was arranged by the live director. Actually, even if no one recognized me, it wouldn't affect the stage effect. Master Bao said, "Come and listen to how they introduce you." On the screen, Oscar waited for the audience's reaction to end before he said, "Wow, contestant number 7 looks very young." Even though he had chatted with Feng Bujue before the recording, he had to pretend that he had just seen him. I believe some of the audience have already recognized him, and some of them might have read his novels but have never seen him in person. So, who is he? The suspense had been stretched out long enough, and it was time to answer it. Oscar took out the theme card and read. Contestant number 7, Bujue, a famous detective novelist who has published 12 detective novels. His works have been serialized online, in magazines, and in newspapers. His style of writing was witty and humorous, unique and unique. Regardless of the length of the story, the plot is ingenious, strange, and unexpected. Oscar put down the card and said, Contestant Bujue, you were recommended by the 3 main editors of our show. They are all your fans. Is that so? Feng Bujue answered half-heartedly. Oscar continued. The main editor's comment is, if you are good enough, but you can't make it big, at least there won't be a second me. Huh? Feng Bujue's lips twitched. Oscar quickly added, based on the habit of our show, every episode, we will have a newcomer come up with a title for that episode. He walked to Feng Bujue's panel. Contestant Bujue, you have 3 minutes to think about it. Let's start with a commercial. What did you decide? Xiao Tan, who was sitting before the television, asked. Feng Bujue did not answer, but pointed at the screen. Since this version of the tape did not have a commercial, and Oscar's next line was recorded separately, after a simple scene, It was time for the reveal. Oscar stood beside Fong Bujue and glanced at the words that he had written on the panel. Then his expression shifted, and he glanced at Fong Bujue from the corner of his eyes. There was a strange look in his eyes. All right, let's take a look at the title that Bujue came up with for this episode of I Am a Writer. After all, Oscar was a professional host. No matter how ridiculous Fong Bujue's writing was, Oscar had to maintain his composure on the surface. As the host raised his hand, the words written by Fong Bujue appeared on the big screen. Please feel free to comment. Chapter 238. Some of the words in this chapter were taken from Mr. Li Feng's novel, The Final Battle in North Korea. Based on my observation and speculation, the director should have said something like "It's okay, continue to Oscar through the earpiece." Fong Bujue told Xiao Tan and Master Bao. So, the title of this episode will be, I Am a Writer, Feel Free to Criticize Me, Master Bao asked as he picked up some food with his chopsticks. Yes, Fong Bujue replied. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Xiao Tan added. On the screen, Oscar used some cliché words to comment on the title Fong Bujue came up with. Then he said, okay, let's move on to the first round of this episode. Let's start writing. The complete rules of the first round appeared on the television, and there was even a voice recording of Oscar's high-speed reading. This segment should have been recorded during the nth season, and it was repeated every time for the audience in front of the television to see. In this round, a random keyword will appear on the screen. Let's see what this keyword is. At this point, the camera moved. On the screen, there were dozens of words like event, character, animal, scenery, and so on. Several seconds later, with a ding, the word character appeared on the screen. Then, each of our contestants will be given 2 keywords. However, before they finish writing, these 2 keywords will be kept a secret. Only they will know about them. When Oscar said that, the 2 random keywords appeared on the screen in front of Fong Bujue. The 7 writers, you have 7 minutes to combine the 2 keywords on the screen and write a paragraph that describes character. There's no limit to the number of words you can write until the time is up. After Oscar said that, he immediately continued. Then the first round, begin. Since the keywords had been announced, he quickly called for the start. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize that in all the writing sessions of this show, there will be no repeat recording. Our contestants only have 7 minutes, and they only have 1 chance. Oscar naturally could not let the audience be idle during these 7 minutes. He had to at least cooperate with the live sound effects and speak for 2 to 3 minutes to create a tense atmosphere. The remaining few minutes would be cut off and not shown on TV because the audience could not wait that long. Therefore, inserting a commercial was a good choice. I know, in many people's minds, being a writer is a profession with a very low threshold. It seems that as long as you have a computer with internet access, anyone can become a writer. Oscar continued, I also know that there are many writing tools, writing assistants, and so on. They have a huge vocabulary, various poems, and excerpts. Some software can even directly generate a large section of a logical plot. However, the writers behind me didn't have any assistants, and they couldn't go online to look up any information. Every word they wrote, every sentence they wrote, they had to search and construct it in their minds, and they only had 7 minutes. This was undoubtedly the most direct manifestation of one's knowledge, creative ability, and writing skills. Let's see what's the difference between real writers and writers. As Oscar spoke, he led a close-range cameraman to the contestants' seats to record the expressions of the contestants as they wrote. I'd like to clarify that there are only 2 input methods used in this show. One is touch handwriting, and the other is the most primitive input method of pinyin. If our contestants write white, the input method won't correct the error. Therefore, on the stage where I am a writer, it is easy to see how good a writer's Chinese is. Right then, after a cut, Oscar said, there are only 20 seconds left. This should be the video after the commercial. This kind of preliminary editing was not bad. Then there was a series of close-up shots. As the host counted down, the camera kept cutting to the 7 contestants and the audience. The background music was intense and intense. 3, 2, 1, time's up. Oscar took out a handkerchief from his suit pocket and wiped away the sweat on his forehead. Okay, now let us reveal the works of the 7 riders one by one. Oscar walked to Xian Tianzong's control panel. Xian Tianzong always gives us the feeling of being at ease, and today is no different. He turned to the contestants. Is it because the keywords you picked this time are easy? Xian Tianzong leaned closer to the microphone beside the control panel. Actually, it doesn't matter what the keywords are. I've always thought the difficulty of the first round is the time. Oscar asked, can I take it that no keywords are too difficult for you? No. Xian Tianzong waved his hand and laughed. It was hard for him to answer this question. If he answered yes, it would be too arrogant. Then let us see what Xian Tianzong's keywords are. Oscar did not press, but continued with the show. At this time, the 2 keywords that Xian Tianzong had drawn were displayed on the big screen. They were arrogant and domineering. Oscar commented, for Xian Tianzong, this should be a piece of cake. It's okay. Xian Tianzong's attitude was still humble. Then, let us see what Xian Tianzong wrote in 7 minutes. After Oscar said that, Xian Tianzong's words appeared on the screen. Beside the clouds, a figure stood up suddenly. His green hair fell to his waist. His body was large, and his robe was luxurious. There was a trace of coldness and arrogance on his handsome face. But from his back, there was an endless desolation. His eyes were filled with an endless depth. Oscar finished reading the paragraph, and after the applause from the audience died down, he pretended to sigh. Phew! Even though this paragraph is not long, I can already feel the presence of a domineering master standing before me. Can I? He took 2 steps back and tilted his head to look at Feng Bujue. Let us ask, this is Bujue's first time on the show. Do you feel any pressure after seeing Xian Tianzong's words? The camera panned to Feng Bujue. He narrowed his eyes and replied, I do feel a lot of pressure. Then let us assume, if it was you, using Xian Tianzong's keywords, do you have the confidence to write something better than this? Oscar asked. He was obviously a good host. The highlight of this kind of show was the competition between writers. As long as it did not escalate into conflict, it was fine. After just 3 seconds, Feng Bujue said darkly, an unworldly figure with a resolute face. But I saw this man stride forward like a shooting star, and the moment he opened his mouth, he said, my military power will bring glory to the world. Hey, I'm just asking if you have the confidence to write something better. You could have just humbly said no. Who told you to recite another version directly? Speaking of which, why does this phrase sound so familiar? Is this Yi Shi's military power? It has to be, right? Oscar complained internally. He immediately turned to look at the main director, who was watching from the front row, but the latter only said softly through the earpiece, continue. Ha! Ha! Contestant Bujue sure has a fast reaction, Oscar said, but what he was thinking was, I will not ask you this kind of question again. Shintian, what do you think? What do you think of Bujue's version? Oscar tossed the hot potato to Xian Tianzong. Air. Not bad, huh? Xian Tianzong's reaction was as calm as ever. All right, now let us take a look at Brother Pin's keywords. Oscar walked to the second contestants panel. Bashan Pin's keywords were tragedy and wise man. Okay, I'm going to ask this question again. Brother Pin, is today's question difficult? Oscar asked. Difficult. Laughter came from the audience. Oscar laughed as well. The contestants on our show are all so humble. None of them said it was not difficult. Then Bashan Pin's content appeared on the screen. The crouching dragon rises from the abyss, shocking the world. 3 parts of the world are settled. Dying before one's ambition is realized, making heroes weep. After Oscar finished reading the poem, the audience clapped. He then said, during the 3 Kingdoms period, Chao Ji could compose a poem in 7 steps. Our Brother Pin is not bad either. He can compose a poem based on 3 keywords in 7 minutes. No. Actually, the last 2 sentences are from Du Fu Shu Xiang. The original is dying before one's ambition is realized, making heroes weep, Bashan Pin said into the microphone. I'm just using that as an excuse. Brother Pin, if you continue to be so humble, the other contestants won't be able to sit still. Oscar laughed, and the audience laughed as well. At a place like this, there will probably be some funny sound effects during the post-production to add to the atmosphere. Fong Bujue, who sat in front of the television, added in an explanatory tone. By the way, is the first round of the show really that difficult? Xiao Tan stuffed a piece of food into his mouth and said as he chewed, "If you give me 7 minutes to compose based on 3 keywords, I'll only be able to compose 1 or 2 sentences at most." I thought about it. Normally, even if an experienced contestant knows the rules and is used to composing on the spot, they'll need at least 1 to 2 minutes to compose. Then, in the remaining 5 minutes, using that input method, they'll only be able to compose 200 to 300 words at most. Fong Bujue said, "Therefore, you can see that the content that everyone wrote is not that long. Xian Tian's sect used less than 80 words, and Bashan Pin only wrote 28 words. This means that they're familiar with the rules and know how to get the highest score in this round. Shortening it to less than 100 words and using poetry to express it will leave a deep impression on the audience." "Oh, I see," Xiao Tan asked. "Then, Brother Ju, how many words did you write?" "Around 300. Xiao Tan and Master Bao spat out the food in their mouths. "What are you doing? What kind of manners are you talking about? You're not in your own home, so you're spitting out food?" Fong Bujue grumbled. By then, Oscar had finished revealing the word for the 3rd and 4th contestants, and he moved to the 5th contestant. Previously, the 2 keywords that vegetables and fruits had drawn were relatively difficult. They were beast and change. He had written more than 100 words, and his essay was on point. However, compared to the previous 2 contestants, it gave off a slightly inferior feeling. Mo Bushan's keywords were perseverance and power. Her writing style was changeable, so any keyword should not be a problem for her. However, her writing ability in a short period of time was obviously not as good as the other professional web novelists present. In the end, she wrote more than 50 words. Even though her writing was not bad, the content did not fully express the meaning of the 2 keywords. Number 5, I'm going on stage. The keywords that I drew were horror and beauty. He wrote quite a lot in handwriting. His bewildered eyes shone with a bright luster. His originally pale fingers were now as yellow as a corpse's. The veins on his tall and broad forehead undulated along with the subtle changes in his emotions, rising and falling suddenly. She was still beautiful, but she was about to lose her life force and turn into a cold corpse. "A very good description," Oscar said. Then, he turned around and said to Soda, "I wonder what kind of style Brother Field would have if a horror master were to write this part." Of course, Brother Field's writing would be better. Soda laughed. "I'm going on stage," replied. "Soda is saving me some face, but he's actually looking down on me." There was a burst of laughter. Then Oscar walked to Soda. "Okay, let's see what keyword Soda has drawn." The keywords that appeared on screen were religion and evil spirit. Once these 2 terms appeared, the audience became restless. The director also purposely let the camera scan the faces of the other contestants. Without a doubt, for Soda, getting these 2 words was very beneficial. This was his specialty in the field of supernatural literature. However, the content that he wrote was unexpected. "We summon you for a feast, the master of darkness and terror. Enjoy the lingering sorrow of the soul. Sacrifice the divine power too." After reading this, Oscar asked half-jokingly, "Soda, what is the content after this ellipsis?" Because I was running out of time, that's all I could write." Soda was an honest person. Oscar asked, "Did you take too long to come up with the idea?" "No, I used all the spelling to find a word feast and wasted 3 minutes. I really couldn't find it, so I changed it to handwriting, and then I ran out of time," Soda replied. Oscar shrugged and made a helpless expression at the camera. There was laughter from the audience. "Soda, what do you want us to say about you?" Oscar laughed. Soda just smiled. That was his personality. He was more easygoing, and it could be said that he had the best mentality for the competition. Then, finally, let's take a look at the newcomer. Oscar finally walked to phone Bujue. Bujue, after seeing the performance of the 6 seniors, are you nervous? How should I put this? I'm not that good at writing things that have a problem, phone Bujue replied. Oh, like soda. You didn't finish it? Oscar asked. That's not it, phone Bujue said. But I think I overdid it. Now that you put it that way, the audience and I are looking forward to it. Oscar pointed at the big screen. Come, let's take a look. The 2 keywords that Bujue drew are the words war and hero appeared on the screen. From the reaction of the other writers and the audience, this was undeniably a very simple question. I believe everyone has the same feeling as me. Yu Fei, Guan Yu, Zhang Zizhong. Instantly, more than 10 names flashed across my mind. There are too many characters that can be described. Oscar turned to the camera. But from the past shows, it is not hard to see that the simpler the question, the harder it is because it is hard to write it well. Many contestants failed to get a high score because the keywords were too easy. As he spoke, the camera zoomed in on phone Bujue. Then what kind of character would Bujue describe based on the words war and hero? Please take a look. Once he finished, Brother Ju's words appeared on the big screen. In the summer of 1945, in the forest at the border between China and North Korea, a handsome and large middle-aged man was studying his gorillas. His country had been destroyed by the invaders for 35 years. Even though the body of his country had fallen into the hands of the enemy, the soul of his country had not died, and the sons and daughters of his country were still fighting. He was born in a poor but nationalistic family of tenant farmers. Since he was a child, he had received a strong patriotism education. At the age of 14, he swore that he would never return to his hometown until his motherland became independent. At the age of 18, he formed the Korean Revolutionary Army. Before he reached adulthood, he picked up a gun and fought desperately with the Guandong Army, the most elite army of the Japanese invaders, in the snowy mountains, dense forests, white mountains, and black waters on the border between China and Korea. The Korean communists led by him were the group that fought the hardest for the independence of their country. They were the group that sacrificed the most. By then, they had been fighting a guerrilla war for 15 years. He had grown from a young man to a middle-aged man and became the leader of the Korean communists in the bloody battle. He was the one that the Koreans called Hanbi, Korean, 1 star. Kim Jong-un. Halfway through, Oscar felt that something was wrong, but he braced himself and tried to maintain a calm tone as he finished reading the 300-word paragraph. The audience was silent. Even the live director was dumbfounded. For a moment, he did not know how to direct the audience's reaction. Who invited this brat here? Who is it? Who is it? Oscar's complaining soul was completely ignited, but he could only scream in his heart. War, hero, character. Is General Kim the first person you think of when you use these keywords? This is going against the natural order. Are you being sarcastic? You must be, right? Can't you just write a few sentences like everyone else? Not only did you name him, you even wrote down the time and place. What are you trying to do? Do you think this is a short biography? Oscar looked at the executive director again. His expression was saying, let's stop the recording for now. You can go talk to that kid, teacher. Unexpectedly, another sentence came from his earpiece. Shao Li, live director, direct the audience to applaud. Oscar, you continue. Chapter 239. Brother Ju, this part will be cut out during the official broadcast, right? Xiao Tan asked. Why would it be cut out? It's not like I have to rewrite it, Feng Bujue replied. There is nothing to criticize about this part. Officer Bao said. There is indeed no need for harmony. During the post-match interview, I was asked why I wrote something like that, Feng Bujue said. I asked him in return, why couldn't I write something like that? Oh, there will be post-match interviews? Xiao Tan asked. Yes, after the competition, each writer will have to record an interview individually. During the interview, the staff will play some footage from the show and ask questions from the side. Feng Bujue answered. This interview will be edited into many segments and interspersed with the broadcast. It is similar to the voiceovers that often appear in reality TV shows. Oh, so the commentary that appears in the middle of a reality TV show is recorded this way? Xiao Tan asked. That is common knowledge, Officer Bao said. Feng Buju added, then what do you think those scenes are? Air. Xiao Tan was speechless. But this is the first edited version, and it doesn't have these scenes, Feng Buju said. It will only appear in the official broadcast. At this point in the conversation, Oscar used some nonsense to divert everyone's attention. Then he said, then the tense moment has arrived. It is time to vote. The camera panned to show the whole contestant area. Oscar continued, dear 700 audience members, at this moment, you can cast your votes on the small screen before you. Every audience member will have a first ballot and a second ballot. Please give your first ballot to the contestant that you think performed the best in this round, and give your second ballot to the contestant that you think performed the second best. He explained, the index of the first ballot is 1 and the second ballot is 0. 5. When the index is the same, the number of first ballot will decide the winner. Other than that, the voting time is 2 minutes, and you cannot vote for the same contestant. Now, the voting begins. Following that, intense background music started playing, and the camera zoomed in on each of the 7 riders in order. Oscar was not idle either. He had to find something to say. The first round is usually the most unpredictable round. Other than Bujue, who is here for the first time, the other 6 riders have won first place in this round. He paused for a moment. So far, only Bashan Pin has won the first round as a newcomer, but that was our first episode, and all 7 contestants were newcomers. After that, there hasn't been a new contestant who won the first round. I wonder if contestant Bujue will break that rule today. 2 minutes passed quickly, and Oscar shouted, time's up. He sighed. All right, as usual, we will announce the first, second, and last place of this round. He looked at the big screen. Let me first announce the second place contestant. The camera changed again. When Oscar spoke, he purposely dragged it out to keep the audience in suspense. He is. As the music stopped, a writer's pen name appeared on the screen. I'm going on stage. The camera replayed the change in expression of I'm going on stage 3 times. However, the man was wearing sunglasses and had a mop hairstyle, so even if his expression was slightly different, it was hard to tell. Then, the director maliciously replayed the expressions of the other contestants one by one when the second place was announced. Of course, everyone appeared to be relatively calm. Most of them hesitated for a second before putting on a relaxed smile and applauding with the audience. Only Feng Bujue continued to observe the development of the situation with a face that looked like he was about to die. He looked like an office worker who had just finished punching in the morning and was looking forward to getting off work. If it weren't for the salary, he would have left immediately. Congratulations, Brother Field. Oscar turned around to say, how is it? Are you satisfied with this result? He asked. Actually, I thought I would only be in the 4th or 5th place. I'm going on stage, replied with a smile. Then, who do you think will be in the top 3? Oscar tossed out another question that might offend someone. I'm going on stage, answered honestly. I think Brother Ping, Xin Tian, and Bujue. I think their performances are better than mine. Oh, Oscar's reaction was fast. He turned to vegetable and fruit. Vegetable, what do you think? In my heart, the top 3 should be Brother Ping, Xin Tian, and Brother Field. Vegetable and fruit answered. I might be at the bottom. How can you say that to Uncle Soda? Mo Buxiang asked vegetable and fruit. Her tone and expression showed that she was joking. Oscar laughed. Soda, looks like Mo Buxiang means that you will be at the bottom this round. Soda also laughed. You're going to announce the last place, right? That's right, Oscar said. He pointed at the big screen. Let's see. The last place of the first round is... Soda was undeniably at the bottom. Even though Feng Bujue's work was not easy to comment on, at least he had finished it, and he had written quite a lot. However, the few sentences in the Soda could only be considered a half-finished product. Without the director's reminder, the cameraman repeated what he had done earlier. Okay, I believe. Soda should have predicted this result, Oscar said. Soda only nodded with a smile. Then, the most important moment has arrived. Oscar turned back to the big screen. Today, who will be the winner of the first round? Will it be Bashan Pin and Xian Tianzong, who are favored by our writers? Or will it be Bujue, who is new to this stage? Vegetable and Momo as popular contestants. Do they really not stand a chance? Following his lines, the camera panned to the contestants according to their order. The result will be revealed after the commercial. There was another edit. In the next shot, Oscar read out the names on the big screen. The winner of the first round is Bashan Pin. The audience cheered and clapped. I believe everyone is as impressed as I am by Brother Pin's description of the characters, Oscar said, and the big screen reappeared with a poem that Bashan Pin had written earlier. Then, there was a sudden change. Oscar's position changed, and he announced loudly, I believe everyone has been waiting for this for a long time. Now, let us enter the second round, the stroke of genius. Look, the part just now was the part where they planned to cut into the interview. At that point, they should have cut into the comments of the contestants on the result of the first round. Feng Bujue told Xiao Tan and Master Bao. Xiao Tan asked, so what was your ranking in the first round? I have no idea, Feng Bujue said. I didn't ask. Shush, look at the rules. Master Bao signaled for them to be quiet. The screen showed the detailed rules for the second round, and then Oscar said, the first round is over. From the current situation, Bashan Pin is one step ahead, and I want to go on the stage is right behind him. Soda is temporarily last. After the second round, I wonder what kind of change will happen to the ranking. Oscar said as he strode to Feng Bujue. Bujue, if I tell you now that the format of the second round might be very advantageous to you, would you believe me? Now, you look like you just walked out from an MLM convention. So, my initial prediction is the format of the second round is indeed very advantageous to me. Feng Bujue replied with narrowed eyes. The audience laughed from the bottom of their hearts. Oscar laughed awkwardly. No wonder contestant Bujue is a detective novel writer, and he is quite humorous. He quickly took 2 steps away from Brother Bujue, and once again, he regretted his action of chatting with Feng Bujue. In the second round, Oscar steered the topic back on track. Our 7 writers will see. He waved his arm, this paragraph. On the screen, a paragraph that was not that long appeared. Ding E, a normal office worker, came from a normal family. A relative of his was seriously ill and needed a large sum of money to pay for the medical fees. One day, Ding E picked up a treasure, and Ding E saved that relative. Oscar looked at the paragraph and said, I need all the writers to come up with a synopsis based on this paragraph to make it a relatively complete story. His eyes moved to the contestants area. The time limit is 10 minutes. Now start. Even though the announcement was made, none of the 7 contestants moved. They were all deep in thought. If writing is cosmetics, then creativity is the content of a novel. Both can attract readers, Oscar said to the camera. The judging criteria for this round is the degree of attraction of the plot. In the end, the contestants will dictate the content that they have come up with. In other words, this round has nothing to do with writing, but creativity. He paused before continuing. Personally, I think, as a mystery novelist, Bujue will be able to surprise us when he comes up with this kind of short story. The camera panned to Feng Bujue. The man's eyes were blank, and he was as still as a statue. It was unclear whether he was thinking or spacing out. Mo Buxiang and Soda often have excellent performances in this round, Oscar said. I wonder what the result will be today. He said, according to the results of the online voting, the stroke of genius is the segment that the audience of this program is looking forward to the most. Every issue, our 7 writers will bring 7 wonderful stories to the audience. Some are exquisite, some are terrifying, some are profound, and some are suspenseful. Although the highlights are different, every story is extremely attractive without exception. He rambled on for a while before it was time for commercials. Since there were no commercials for this version, Xiao Tan and Master Bao welcomed the announcement that they had been waiting for. The announcement process for this round was not in the order of 1 to 7. Instead, it was randomly selected. Therefore, the contestants in the 6th or 7th place could not take their time to think about it. They had to finish their thoughts within 10 minutes to prevent themselves from being the first to be selected. Then, the first contestant to be announced is... Oscar pointed at the big screen. The numbers from 1 to 7 kept flashing before stopping at 4. "M.O., please begin," Oscar said directly without beating around the bush. The control panel in front of the contestants was in free input mode. Not only could the contestants write words, they could also draw sketches, such as character relationships, maps, or objects. When the contestants dictated, they could look at the sketches and organize their words. Of course, they could also write a short story on the screen like they were writing an essay. They could just read it once when the time came. There was no fixed format for things like an outline, and it could be written in any way. In M.O. Bouchiang's story, Ding Yi was a 29-year-old woman. She had a dream of being a musician since she was young, but in the end, she stepped into a normal life. That was until Ding Yi's fiancé fell seriously ill and changed her life. Later, she found a magical flute that could make anyone who heard it cry. In the end, not only did she save her fiancé, she also regained her dream. Her story was very short. It only took 3 minutes to finish. Along with the emotional background music, a few of the audience members used it as a pretext to make a fuss. The cameraman naturally did not miss this opportunity and gave them a close-up of a few seconds. Yes, MOMO has brought us another exciting story. It looks calm, but has a heartwarming power. She has once again proven that for a story to be captivating, it does not need exaggerated characters or intense conflicts. As long as there is true love, the story will have its soul. Oscar recited a string of comments like he was reciting poetry. Then, he began to announce the next contestant. In this round, the contestants basically brought the story into their field of expertise. The questions given in the Divine Pen segment were always very open. Ding Yi's gender, age, family's identity, illness, the use of treasures, and so on. There were countless ways to unfold the story. There was a high degree of freedom, so it was very easy for the contestants to write. If they had the heart, they would prepare a few good outlines before the recording, and when the time came, all they had to do was throw them in. Soon, all the contestants finished speaking. The one with the best performance was probably Soda. The horror master was indeed amazing. In just 10 minutes, he came up with a plot that was full of twists and turns and had some suspense. Furthermore, he was able to bring the topic to the end without any problems. Finally, it was Feng Bujue's turn. For some reason, even though Brother Ju was randomly announced, he was also the last to appear. Normally, the last contestant to announce their outline in the second round would have the advantage. Even though the contestants would have thought of the content within 10 minutes and the others could not touch the screen after the announcement, they could use the extra time to edit and perfect the plot in their minds. At that moment, the audience was also waiting expectantly for Feng Bujue's performance. There were 3 reasons for that. First, Oscar had said those irresponsible things about mystery writers. Second, Brother Ju was the last to appear. Third, the man's performance in the first round was still fresh in everyone's mind. Feng Bujue crossed his arms before his chest, and his face was filled with worry. Oscar walked to his side and glanced at his panel. He was shocked and thought, it's completely blank. The other contestants have written at least half the screen, haven't they? What is going on with you? No one has ever handed in a blank script in this segment before. The person who wrote the biography of General Jean before he was 33 in the first round can't even squeeze out a single word. What is the meaning of this? Contestant Bujue, it's your turn. When Oscar said that, he was already prepared for the man to give up. But to his surprise, Feng Bujue took a deep breath and leaned close to the microphone. Without looking at the screen, he started to speak very quickly. Ding Yi, 30 years old, single, a normal office worker, working at the lowest level. Like most office workers, he lives the life of a zombie. Until one day, his aunt's son's classmate's uncle was diagnosed with a terminal illness and had to be sent to Earth for treatment. Wait a minute, what's with being sent to Earth? Is this still a human story? Aliens who have the ability to travel through space lost to Earthlings in terms of medical treatment? What does the uncle of his aunt's son's classmate have to do with Ding E? Why don't you just let him die? Oscar couldn't help but grumble in his heart, and the expression on his face changed. Feng Bujue continued. But going to Earth required a large amount of money. It was not something that his aunt's family, or his aunt's son's classmate's family could afford. At that moment, Ding E picked up a pair of magical dancing shoes. This treasure awakened his memory that had been sealed for many years. The sense of justice and mission that he had lost for a long time had all returned to his mind. So, 20 years ago, Ding Yi's identity was a superhero from the Cosmic Youth League, the Thunderbolt Dancer. What Thunderbolt? What Thunderbolt? What Thunderbolt Dancer? Someone, please chase him off the stage. Oscar was going crazy. Ding E first contacted their alien planet's colony on Earth, India. Feng Bujue continued. So, Indian isn't from Earth? So, that's the setting? His childhood friend, the Stomper Stranger, lived on Earth. A young superhero with such a name. How did he fight against the evil of the universe when he was young? Then, they successfully used their superpowers to help Ding Yi's aunt's son's classmates' uncle smuggle into Earth. Superhero your ass. Justice your ass. If you don't have money, then smuggle into Earth. What's the point of this whole series of settings? In the end, Ding Yi's aunt's son's uncle received proper treatment from a local military doctor and recovered. Feng Bujue finally said, and Ding Yi's story had just begun. After his awakening, he joined the Cosmic Youth League. The name Thunderbolt Dancer once again appeared in people's eyes, and the evil forces that had been sleeping in the Milky Way for a long time started to stir again. At this point, he stopped abruptly. For some reason, everyone who listened to his story had an inexplicable and painful expectation in their hearts. They hoped that he would continue to tell the story. Chapter 240. Cut. The main director called for a cut, and Oscar sighed in relief because he did not know what to do next. If it did not stop, he would have started complaining. The scene changed, and they entered the voting phase. Xiao Tan asked, what happened during that period? Oh, that period, Feng Bujue replied. There will be a few post-match interviews from the contestants, which are the comments from the other contestants and myself. Then, Oscar will record a speech and add it to the end to make the show look better during the live broadcast. Is it because you have too many points to complain about, and you need to think about what you're going to say next? Master Bao interrupted. I suppose so. Feng Bujue shrugged. Oh, right at that time, the director told me something quite troublesome. Everyone take a break. Cameraman, adjust the equipment. We'll start again in 10 minutes. The main director spoke calmly into the microphone. Then he raised his arm to signal. Bujue, come over here for a moment. Feng Bujue walked down from the contestants area and walked to stand before the main director. Director Fei, are you going to announce that I've been disqualified due to my poor attitude? When he asked that question, he was practically glowing with joy. From how I see it, if this continues, you're definitely going to stay today, Fei Ran replied calmly. But this is different from what we agreed on. Feng Bujue quickly added. Who told you to be so eye-catching? Do you think you'll be disqualified because of that? Fei Ran said. The correct way to be disqualified is to be as mediocre as possible. Then what should we do now? Feng Bujue asked. You really don't want to come back for another episode? Fei Ran asked. Yes, Feng Bujue answered honestly and decisively. How about this? During the final round, I can help you with some under-the-table manipulation, Fei Ran said. But about that, I understand. What do you understand? First, don't talk about under-the-table operations. Second, don't talk about under-the-table operations, Feng Bujue said with a serious face, and he continued to emphasize his tone. Thirdly, you are not allowed to talk about under-the-table operations. Fei Ran pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose. Do I look like the kind of person who likes fighting club jokes? Of course, Feng Bujue replied. Fear nodded. All right then, since we hit it off so well, I trust that you'll keep it a secret for me. Of course, Feng Bujue said. Oh, there's something else I need to inform you about, Fearon said. Speak your mind. I have a feeling that this episode's ratings will definitely be good. Moreover, your unique behavior will definitely generate a certain number of fans. So, at the end of June, before this season's competition ends, there's an 80% chance that you'll have to participate in the revival round. Huh? Fong Bujue asked, is it that troublesome? The revival round's list will be based on the top 7 online votes. All the contestants who have been on the show and have been eliminated will be included in the voting list. This voting is transparent, so if you're selected, there's nothing I can do about it, Fei Ran replied. You could just make a statement like, because contestant Bujue is sick, he can't participate in the revival round. So we've invited the 8th place contestant to take his place, Fong Bujue suggested. Do you think this is a primary school student skipping class? Firan asked. Sick. Is that not convincing enough? Then be more specific. What about syphilis? You seem to have misunderstood the main point of my words. Don't worry. It's a perfectly reasonable reason. Schubert contracted it when he was 25, and so did I. Mr. Fong, you have to have some self-respect, huh? So, you'll have to participate in the revival round in 2 months? Xiao Tan asked. To be specific, it will depend on the response after this episode is broadcasted. Fong Bujue replied, if I don't get into the top 7 online votes in early June, This is the first time I've seen such a sinister smile on someone's face. Master Bao added, if there's no other way, Master Bao, can you help me contact some online ghostwriters and have them spread some negative comments about me during the voting period? That way, wait a minute. Master Bao interrupted him. Why do you need me to help you contact someone? By the way, where am I supposed to find a gunman for you? You're working for the government, so why are you still acting like you're some big shot? I don't know what kind of government you're imagining is. In any case, I'm just, all right, you don't need to explain yourself. Fong Bujue interrupted Master Bao. Let's watch the recording first. We'll talk about the rest later. At that moment, on the screen, the result of the second round of voting was revealed. Fong Bujue's story that broke the heavens had shocked the world, and that earned him the 2nd place in this round. The 1st place went to Soda. The last place went to Mo Buxiang. As expected, the first contestant was at a disadvantage. Even though her story was not bad, it lacked impact and highlight. After the other 6 contestants announced their story outlines, the audience's impression of her story was greatly diluted. Therefore, she received very few first-place votes. During the break, Oscar managed to calm himself down. Now that he was back to normal, he said casually, after 2 rounds of intense competition, we're finally going to welcome the final competition of the 3rd round. He paused for a second before saying, for the 7 contestants, the index from the first 2 rounds will each take up 30% of their total index, and the index from the 3rd round will take up 40% of their total index. Therefore, every contestant will have the chance to turn the tables at the last moment and take the 1st place for this episode. Of course, this also means that every contestant has the risk of being eliminated. However, before the 3rd round starts, let's take a break. Oscar's tone changed along with the content of the script. Let's enter the question time. As he said that, he took out a few prepared cards from his suit pocket. I have 3 question cards with me. The questions on them were chosen by the 3 main editors of the show from the online message board of I Am a Writer. His eyes scanned the contestants area, and the camera also scanned the 7 contestants. These questions came from the audience of this show. He raised the cards and placed them at eye level. There is no grading system for this part, so you can answer with a relatively relaxed attitude. Oscar turned to the camera. Then, for the same question, what kind of answer will different writers give? After the commercial break, I'll reveal it to you. The next second, Oscar started to read the questions. Today's first question is, he read from the cards. Everyone, I'm a newbie writer, and I'm currently serializing a novel online. There's a very Chinibu character in the book. I feel like he's too much of a character to steal the show, and his existence is rather useless. I wish to write him to death, but I can't think of a logical plot, so I wonder if you can help me come up with some ideas. P.S. I'm writing a normal urban novel, and there's no supernatural setting. After Oscar finished reading, he said, "Oh, this audience member who asked the question is also a writer. He has run into some trouble with his writing. and he wishes for the 7 of us to help him. Oscar wasted 1 or 2 minutes of time with his rambling. Then he continued, Then, can we start with Xian Tianzong? Xian Tianzong replied, Sure. He looked into the microphone and said, I think, when the train was entering the station, he accidentally fell into the tracks. That's so cruel. Oscar said directly. The audience laughed, and even Xian Tianzong himself laughed. Compared to that, isn't it more similar to being hit by a car when crossing the street? Oscar asked, Would the Chinibu character die a more horrible death? Xian Tianzong laughed. No, we can assume that the character was playing a game of hero versus monster on the platform of the subway station. He played both the hero and the monster, jumping here and there, and then, so pitiful. Oscar cut him off. The audience laughed again. Now that you put it that way, I think this guy is even more pitiful, don't you think? Let's see Brother Pin's answer. Oscar walked to Ba Xiangping's control panel. Brother Pin, what's your answer? Playing a sea monster in the swimming pool and accidentally drowning to death. Ba Xiangping replied. Oscar did not comment. He turned to look at the camera with a strange expression. The director instigated the audience to laugh again. How come I feel like these 2 deaths do not reflect the character's Chinibu character, but make it feel like the character is only in his 2nd year of middle school? Oscar continued to joke. At this stage, he finally had the freedom to mock the character. All right, let's hear how Vegetable Melon answers this question. Oscar walked over to the fruits and vegetables. The man had already prepared the answer. He said into the microphone, wearing a self-made superhero uniform and jumping down from a tall building. Like the opening of King Haibian? Oscar asked. Vegetable and fruit replied with a smile. Yes, something like that. Oscar nodded. He did not think there was much to say about this answer. He walked to Mo Buxiang's control panel. Mo, what's your answer? Myocardial infarction at Comic-Con. Mo Buxiang asked in an uncertain tone. Are you equating Chinibu with an otaku? Oscar asked. Is there a difference? Mo Buxiang asked with confusion. Oscar licked his lips, looking speechless. The audience burst into laughter again. Okay, Brother Phil, what's your answer? Oscar asked. Following the plot of the comic, he made a dish, and after eating it, he died of food poisoning at home. I went on stage answered. Hey, that has nothing to do with cooking, right? It's because he bought poisonous ingredients from the start, right? Oscar complained again. Then it was Soda's answer. There's no supernatural setting, right? Then he choked to death while eating? You're asking me? Since Soda used a questioning tone, Oscar used that as an excuse. I didn't kill him. He complained along the way, and it was quite enjoyable. However, when he reached Feng Bujue, his heart sank again. Oscar forced a smile. Bujue, your answer is on the road that goes down a mountain. He drove his car and cut into the U-turn at more than 100 kilometers per hour. At the moment of the turn, he drove the tires into the ditch by the roadside. Feng Bujue calmly finished his narration. Oscar was stunned for 2 seconds before he realized what he was referring to. And then he died. If he didn't die, did he use whirlwind charge? The audience laughed. Oscar laughed drily and said, Okay, let's look at the second question. He took out the second card and read, If there's a day where there is no inspiration and you have to stop updating for that day, how do you explain it to the readers? Oh, that is a very sharp question, Oscar said. Oscar said, and there's no beginning or end to it. Could it be that the chief editor secretly added his own question in? He was just saying that, but to his surprise, the main director said through the earpiece, Stop wasting time. Oscar's lips twitched, and he said with a fake smile, Ha, I'm just kidding. He quickly returned to Xian Tianzong's side. Sharp questions need to be asked and answered quickly. Xian Tianzong, what's your answer? Xian Tianzong replied seriously, I will tell the truth. Toward this question, the writers all gave a smooth answer, but they all looked sincere. Ba Xiangping's answer was, I will publish a single chapter, saying that I have some personal matters to attend to and need to take a day off. Vegetable Fruit's answer was confident. I have never stopped updating. I only write physical books, and I have always submitted my manuscripts on time. I have never stopped updating. Mo Bouchon's answer was flawless as well. I only write short stories online. Normally, when I start to publish, the whole book is almost finished. I am an editor myself, so there shouldn't be a problem with the manuscripts. I'm going on stage, said. After Oscar asked the questions, he walked to Soda and asked, Soda, what's your answer? I have never stopped updating. When I publish, the manuscript can be published for 3 to 4 months. Basically, when the first batch of manuscripts is finished, the rest of the manuscripts will have reached the ending. However, Soda did not avoid the question. He still answered, but if there is a day where I have to stop updating due to lack of inspiration, I believe I will tell the truth. With suppressed emotions, Oscar walked to the last contestant. Even his voice was shaking. Bourgeois, if it's you. Phone Bourgeois answered him calmly. I'm out to find inspiration. Huh? That was the reaction of the other 6 contestants. The next second, their expressions shifted, and they said the same thing in their hearts. Is it really okay for you to do this? How should I put this? It is a perfectly reasonable explanation, Oscar said. His smile turned awkward again, but internally, he was grumbling. Find your head. You're a detective novelist, aren't you? Are you going to a crime scene to find inspiration? Or are you planning to create a crime scene? You're already on some kind of blacklist at the police station. Ha! Ha ha! Then, let's take a look at today's finale question. Oscar felt that it was better to end this segment as soon as possible. Under the backdrop of the live lighting and sound effects, he raised the 3rd question card and looked at the camera. Excuse me, what is the sentence you say to the editor the most? At this time, it was the commercial break again. With the director's hint, Oscar recited the phrase that he used after the commercial break. After the 2 cameras switched, the contestants started to answer the questions one by one. Xian Tianzong's answer was hello. His explanation was, I say it every time we contact each other. That was quite a smooth answer. Ba Xiaoping was more experienced than him, so he replied, thank you. Oscar complained, Vegetable, don't tell me you're going to say goodbye to me. Vegetable and Fruit smiled and said, sorry to trouble you. Okay, looks like the communication between a pure online writer and an editor is not something that people from our dimension can pry into, Oscar said with a smile. The next few contestants all have physical works. I wonder what kind of answer they will give. The sentence that I say to my editor the most. Mo Bouchon tilted her head and answered thoughtfully, please do not hesitate to criticize it. Oscar finally found an answer that he could dig into. He immediately asked, and the reason is? Because every time I submit a manuscript, the editor says it's good. He's always careful when he criticizes it, Mo Bouchon explained. Oh, Oscar said, Brotherfield, what do you think? You're also an editor. Facing a beauty like Mo, shouldn't you be a bit hesitant to criticize her? I'm going on stage, said with a smile. I'm the editor of a sports magazine. The people who submit to me are all strong men and strong women. The audience burst into laughter, and so did Oscar. Okay, Brotherfield, when you were a writer, what was the sentence that you said to your editor the most? It should be to tell him not to be too polite. I'm going on stage, said, the web editor responsible for me is younger than me, but he always calls me teacher and asks me to teach him. Brotherfield is a sports major after all. You have a different presence. Oscar took the opportunity to compliment the man and then turned to Soda. Soda, what's your answer? Thank you for your hard work, Soda replied. He added, because there are many obscure words in my novel, I had to do a lot of research before I wrote them in. Therefore, it was very troublesome to proofread them. Okay, looks like the answer to this question is really a collection of everyday words, Oscar said. He very unwillingly walked to phone Bourgeois again. Bourgeois, I believe your answer will be able to open our eyes again, right? He had already made his displeasure clear. Phone Bourgeois scoffed coldly and said with a fearless expression, don't be rash. Put down the knife. We can talk this out. Give me a few more days. Really, just a few more days. Chapter 241. Is this kind of answer really okay? Master Bao asked. Phone Bourgeois said, of course it's okay. My editor won't mind. As for the TV station, anyway, TV shows are very open these days. Basically, anything can be said. My answer will most likely be seen as a joke. He paused. But you can see from the editing space at the end of this video that the Oscars are running out of words. I'm curious. After this episode, how will the other writers see you? Xiao Tan asked. At this time, Arthas had already climbed onto Xiao Tan's lap. It reached out its furry paws to grab the food on Xiao Tan's plate. Xiao Tan had no intention of stopping it. Actually, we talked before and after the competition. Feng Bujua said, although my net worth, popularity, and influence are far from those 6 writers, everyone got along very well. It was not the kind of harmony that was just for show. We really hit it off. Speaking of which, in your line of work, aren't people in the same line of work as enemies? Master Bao asked. That depends on the situation. Old Bao, you're in the government and have a wide network. You should understand. In any line of work, there will be some B***stars. Feng Bujue said straightforwardly. These people are not talented or hardworking. They are basically active in the middle and lower levels of the industry. They use unfair competition methods all day long. They say one thing in front of others and another behind others' backs. They also like to show off their superiority in front of newbies. They are always envious of those in the same line of work who are doing better than them. Their mentality is seriously imbalanced. They don't try to catch up with others with hard work. Instead, they play tricks or blame others. He paused. This group of people is like stubborn dirt at the corner of a pipe. They don't have the ability to completely block the flow of water, but they will spare no effort to pollute the water source. It is very difficult to get rid of them completely, but leaving them alone makes people uncomfortable. It is because of the existence of this group of B***stars that many industries are in a mess. Under their influence, many people who originally followed the rules are also in the same boat. Some violations gradually became unspoken rules. Those who don't follow these rules can only suffer in silence. When men talked about their careers, they always talked nonstop. Feng Bujue was no exception. So, in many industries where competition is fierce or direct, peers will become enemies. He changed the topic. However, the 6 people on the show are all top figures in the industry. At their level, there is no such conflict. Since they were able to reach the peak, each and every one of them must have their own outstanding aspects. However, scumbags could only see the flaws of successful people, but they could not see the strengths and efforts of others. Among these 6 people, 3 of them were worth more than 10 million yuan. Moreover, they were all cultured people. Even if there is a direct conflict of interest between them under certain circumstances, they will still use the writer's method to resolve it. Attacking each other and even cursing in public will make it seem a little unprofessional. Haha, but their fans must have been fighting nonstop when they watched the show, right? Master Bao asked. This is called the eunuch is more anxious than the emperor. Feng Bujue said, these gods might have participated in the show with the mentality of having fun, but the fans took it seriously. This show itself is for entertainment. There is no #1 writer in the world, so how can there be a winner? In my opinion, no matter who wins the finals, they will not gain anything. They will definitely be cursed by the fans of the others. He spread his hands and said, that is why I don't want to get involved in the revival competition. If I get 7th place in the online voting, won't the fans of the guy in 8th place hate me to death? You're a person who is unscrupulous on the show and shows all the characteristics of a cancer in the industry. Why would you be afraid of being cursed? Xiao Tan lifted Arthas and blocked the cat's face in front of him. It was as if Arthas was the one who said that. Put down my cat, Feng Bujue said. It's shameful to act cute. While the 3 were chatting, the show and the video had entered the last segment. Oscar came before the camera, and the scene returned to the darkness of a horror movie. The spotlight shone down from above. Oscar stood in the middle of the beam of light and said with a serious face, the moment that everyone has been waiting for is finally here. The 3rd round, which is also the final round, is about to begin. He extended an arm and pointed at the camera. Welcome to the final round of the showdown, finishing touch. Then, the rules of the 3rd round were shown on the screen. This round will take a long time, And the rules are more complicated, Oscar said. Oscar said, in this round, each contestant will randomly pick an unfinished novel. He paused for a moment. In other words, it is what we call an unfinished novel. Oscar faced the camera and said, the authors of these novels, due to various reasons, did not manage to write an ending to the story. The story stopped halfway through the plot. And the mission of us 7 writers is to draw a perfect conclusion to these stories that have no ending. Then, the camera changed. Oscar turned his face skillfully and said to the next camera, the novels in this round were chosen by the 3 main editors and many staff members of our show. They read countless unfinished novels, and after a period of selection and discussion, they selected these 7 novels. It was a lot of work, so let us give these heroes a round of applause. The director directed the audience to give them a round of applause. Oscar continued, now, these 7 novels have been printed out separately. When he spoke, several staff members came to the contestants' table and handed each contestant an envelope with a number. Each of our 7 writers will receive an envelope. Inside each envelope is a stack of A4 paper. On the paper is an unfinished novel of about 100,000 words, Oscar explained. Oscar explained, of course, we can't possibly ask the contestants to finish reading the entire novel within the allotted time. Therefore, inside the envelope, there's a special piece of paper. On the paper is the summary that the editing team of I Am a Writer came up with for this novel. In the summary, there is a relationship between the existing characters and a general description of the plot. The total word count is about 3,000 words. Oscar waved his hand and pointed at the big screen. The time for this round is 90 minutes. He snapped his fingers, and a countdown of 90 minutes appeared on the screen. When I say start, the writers can open the envelope. You have to write a final chapter for the novel that you have drawn in 90 minutes. This final chapter will be directly after the last chapter of the book. The camera swept across each contestant's face, then returned to the close-up of Oscar. In this round, the audience will also be able to see the outline of each book. Based on this, they will be able to determine whether the author's content is consistent with the previous book. However, the audience's rating will only be based on the last chapter that the contestants wrote. In other words, the audience only needs to compare the 7 chapters of the 7 writers. Based on that, please choose the one that you think is the best and then cast your vote. Oscar added, as I said earlier, the final round score will take up 40% of the total score. However, of this 40%, the audience's votes will only take up 2/3 of the score. The other 1/3 will come from our expert panel. He pointed at the row at the front of the audience and introduced, there are 3 main editors, 14 editors, and 3 teachers that we invited from the Authors Guild to form a 20-member expert panel. Their votes will be converted into 1/3 of the contestant's score in the final round. Oscar said, our 20 expert teachers have already read all 7 novels in the 3rd round, and most of them participated in the writing of the summary. However, before the competition, no one knows which contestant will draw which book. His tone deliberately created an increasingly tense atmosphere. The teachers' grading standards are more stringent. They will evaluate the ending written by the contestants based on the compatibility of the final chapter with the previous chapter, the consistency of the style, the rationality of the plot, and many other factors. Okay, I believe everyone can't wait anymore. Now, the 3rd round, the finishing touch, officially begins. With Oscar's order, the time on the screen jumped to 89:59. Then the countdown started second by second, and the annoying ticking sound of the stopwatch came from the television. The audience won't wait for 90 minutes, right? Xiao Tan asked. Of course not, Feng Bujue replied. This part will probably be condensed to around 10 minutes, and it will be filled with post-production interviews. There will also be some live audience interviews. There will also be a lucky draw from the current show, and then, of course, there will be commercials. He suddenly remembered something. Oh, right, during the live show, there is no background sound effect. The ticking sound is added in post-production. TSK, I say, for this round, 90 minutes won't be enough, right? For a 100,000-word novel, Even if you only look at the beginning, ending, and skip all the content in the middle, relying on the summary to fill in the gaps. It will take at least half an hour to sort out the thought process and start writing, Master Bao said. Of course, Feng Bujue replied, using the two input methods on the spot, and it will be a last-minute creation. To be able to finish 2,000 words in an hour is already considered professional. He picked up the drink on the coffee table and took a sip. Furthermore, I think the ending is actually very difficult to write. Furthermore, these eunuch books have many holes that have not been filled in. The audience doesn't know that, but the experts will give their ratings based on how well they fill in the holes. Also, when writing, it's best to mimic the style of the original author so that it doesn't feel like it's out of character. Just from the sound of it, I think it's super difficult. Xiao Tan said. Feng Bujue stretched lazily. I think it's okay. When we were recording this part, the audience and most of the staff were resting. Only the 4 fixed cameras and the 2 moving cameras on stage had to follow the whole process. During this time, I took some time to chat with Oscar, who was touching up his makeup, and I also went to the toilet. Hey, wait a minute. Didn't you say the time was tight? You actually had the time to leave your seat to chat with others? Master Bao was shocked. Haha, you'll know when you see the result, Feng Bujue replied. Since it was a preliminary edit, even the 10 minutes in the middle were quickly skipped. Soon, it was time for the announcement of the result. Following Oscar's countdown, a series of close-up shots of the writers appeared, and the music became more urgent. Finally, when the time on the big screen ran out, Oscar screamed at the top of his lungs, "Time's up!" He wiped the sweat from his brow and sighed. Phew! Finally, it's time for the announcement. I have a question. Oscar turned to the contestants. Everyone, there's still time, right? Not yet, the writers answered in unison. This scene was like a primary school class from the 1980s, where the teacher would ask, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Feng Bujue did not say anything, so Oscar walked forward to ask, "I see that contestant Bujue hasn't said anything. Looks like you think you have plenty of time, right?" Feng Bujue answered, "Yes, I've finished reading the whole book." In 90 minutes? Oscar asked with widened eyes. Yes, Feng Bujue answered. Wow. Is contestant Bujue's power the legendary ability to read 10 lines at a glance? Oscar asked. Then let me ask you, what do you think of the book after reading it? It's not bad. Feng Bujue answered expressionlessly. Oscar made a funny face at the camera. How come I feel like I can give that kind of review after reading it for 5 minutes? The audience erupted in laughter. All right, as usual, we'll start with contestant number 1's work. Oscar brought the topic back on track and walked to Xian Tianzong's control panel. Xian Tianzong, you've drawn number 1 today. Do you feel pressured? Xian Tianzong thought about it and replied, Actually, it's not that bad. It's like going to the hospital for an injection when I was young. It's better to be the first. He turned around with a smile. Next week, whoever draws number 1 can swap with me. At this point in the show, the contestants relaxed, and they joked around with each other. Since the writing segment was over, the voting and interview segments were more leisurely. Okay, then let's take a look at the ending written by Xian Tianzong, Oscar said. Xian Tianzong's chapter appeared on the big screen. The last chapter was about 1,700 words. If one read it fast, one could finish it in 4 to 5 minutes. It was not easy for Oscar to be the host. He had to read through the content with the audience and the judges, and he had to read it faster than the others because he had to give some reliable comments after reading it. Of course, Oscar was not completely unprepared. The summaries of the 7 books had been shown on the screen 1 hour ago. Oscar had even interviewed a few audience members and the judges, so he had a basic understanding of the plot of the 7 books, so he was not completely lost when he read the ending. Speaking of that interview, as expected, the opinions of the audience and the experts were different. The audience generally thought that the easiest ending to write was an online novel that Mo Buxiang had drawn, and the hardest ending to write was the wuxia story that Vegetable and Fruit had drawn. However, the experts thought that the wuxia story that Vegetable and Fruit had drawn was actually the easiest ending to write, and the hardest ending to write was the urban supernatural power novel that I was about to draw. Okay, The final chapter written by Xian Tianzong is now before everyone. Several minutes later, Oscar said, I believe everyone is like me, shocked by the content that is less than 2,000 words. Then, he walked over to Feng Bujue. Bujue, what do you think of this final chapter? Why are you asking me? Feng Bujue asked with confusion. Tell us about it. We also want to hear what you have to say, Soda said with a smile. Soda, who was sitting closest to him, laughed. The other writers also looked in his direction, looking at him with expectant eyes. Okay, how should I put this? When I read this chapter, it's like I opened a new series and started the first episode, but when I reached the end of the episode, I had a feeling of, have I missed out on the whole season? How come I feel like this is the last episode? Feng Bujue replied. Can you give an example? Oscar asked. Sure, like the strange classmate next door, Feng Bujue replied. Air. Okay, Oscar said. I think I get it now. Then, Ba Shan Ping, Vegetable and Fruit, and Mo Buxiang announced their final chapters one by one. Every writer's standard was very high. The final chapters they wrote not only restored the original author's style to a certain extent, but also created a strong sense of closure. Even if one did not look at the summary, just looking at this chapter alone would make one feel that this chapter was a memorable ending. As for the book that the experts thought was the most difficult, which was the book that I was going to pick, the final chapter of the book did not perform well. Brother Field's ending confused many of the audience. The expert judge's comment was, it's already not bad to be able to write to this standard. After the first 6 writers' chapters were announced, Vegetable and Fruit and Soda's final chapters had the best response. The former received the majority of the audience's support, and the latter received the experts' praise. All right, it's finally the last chapter. After recording this show, Oscar had exhausted quite a bit of his mental and physical energy. He walked over to Feng Bujue's control panel. I have no doubt that in this round, contestant Bujue will bring us another surprise. Feng Bujue laughed drily. In a way, you are right. Oscar waved his hand excitedly. Now let's see. Contestant Bujue's final chapter. Several seconds later, on the big screen, nothing appeared. Air. Oscar whispered into the earpiece. Director, is there a problem with the equipment? It's not a problem with the equipment. I didn't write anything. Feng Bujue answered Oscar's question on behalf of Director Fei. Oscar was stunned. Contestant Bujue, didn't you say earlier? Yes, there was plenty of time. I finished reading the whole book. Objectively speaking, I think this brother wrote quite well. Feng Bujue replied. But personally, I don't like this novel. In fact, I hate it. There is no reason for that. He held his chin with one hand and said into the microphone, as the saying goes, those who walk different paths cannot work together. As for this book, I don't want to continue a single word. Chapter 242. 1 week ago, after the recording for I Am a Writer, Please Mock Me at Your Heart, contestant number 7's break room. Feng Bujue, who did not write a single word in the last round, was unquestionably eliminated. After chatting with the other contestants for a while, he returned to the break room with a face full of joy, drinking canned coffee. Once the interview was over, he would take the subway home. Not long after, Oscar led 2 cameramen, 1 lighting engineer, and 1 sound engineer to knock on the door of the break room. Feng Bujue went to answer the door. After they all walked in, they started to set up the cameras and set up the lights. Oscar walked in and shook hands with Feng Bujue like he was being inspected by a leader. Thank you for your hard work, Feng Bujue said. Not at all. Thank you for your hard work. He paused and asked, You still need to do 7 interviews, right? No, I only want to interview you, Oscar replied. This is the director's rule. I am responsible for interviewing the eliminated contestants. The remaining 6 will be recorded by the editor or assistant director. Oh, okay. Feng Bujue nodded. There were several fixed camera positions in the break room. The 2 folding chairs that the host and the writer would sit in during the interview were placed in the corner of the room. There were lines drawn on the floor that accurately marked out where the chairs should be placed. The few workers worked skillfully for a while, and the preparation for the interview was quickly completed. Oscar held a manuscript and sat across from Feng Bujue. With his back to the camera, he said, "Then, shall we begin?" Feng Bujue replied, "Okay." He was the one who was in a hurry to go home, so naturally, he wanted to finish the interview as soon as possible. When you received the invitation, were you nervous or stressed? Oscar followed the script that he had prepared and started to ask questions. "No." "Then, did you hesitate?" Oscar asked. "After all, you are a famous writer. Hearing that you will be competing with other writers on this stage, did you feel weird? Compared to them, I'm just a nobody. What's there to hesitate for?" "Huh?" Oscar laughed. He picked up the portable player beside him, clicked on it a few times, and placed it in front of Feng Bujue. On the screen was a previously recorded video. Back then, why did you give this episode the title? It's probably because he had a premonition of what would happen next. Feng Bujue replied. Oscar then asked, "Let's take a look again." He fast-forwarded a few more images. "Why would someone write something like that in the first round? Why can't I write?" Feng Bujue replied with a smile. "Just like what you said at the time, it's hard to come up with an unexpected answer for the three keywords war, hero, and character. Then I'll write a character that no one can think of." Oscar nodded and pushed the progress bar at the bottom of the video player. When the voting results are announced, what do you predict your ranking to be? "Last place," Feng Bujue said. "I've already said that it's a little overboard." Oscar then asked, "During the second round, I noticed that you didn't have a single word on your console. That's because the outline is here." Feng Bujue tapped his temple lightly with his finger. "How many minutes did you take to come up with that story?" Oscar asked. "Actually, I only started coming up with it when you asked me to announce the answer," Feng Bujue replied. "I think so too." Oscar laughed. "Huh, but to be able to come in second on the spot means that you're really good. If you do this a second time, it won't be as effective," Feng Bujue said. "This time, it's because the audience has never seen such a strange way of playing. That's why it left a deep impression on them, and I got more votes. If there are other contestants who imitate me in the future, they might be unlucky." Oscar then turned around and gestured. The two cameramen paused their filming, and the sound engineer put down the microphone. "Let me ask a personal question. After the second round, Director Fei secretly chatted with you for a while. What was it about?" Feng Bujue obviously wouldn't mention the words under-the-table manipulation. He replied calmly, "Oh, at that time, he thought that I would definitely be eliminated if I did this. So he talked to me about the revival contest. After that, we talked about the Fight Club, Schubert, and syphilis." Oscar's mouth twitched a few times and signaled for everyone to continue filming. He dragged the progress bar on the video player again. "In the third round, did you really finish reading the entire book?" Feng Bujue smiled proudly. "When you came in, I realized you hid my envelope inside your shirt pocket, didn't you?" He pointed at Oscar's suit. "Since you came prepared, why don't you give it a try?" Oscar smiled awkwardly and took out the envelope. He took out the stack of A4 papers and flipped to one of them. He said in a proud tone, "My stupid servant, your father is—" Before the man could finish, Feng Bujue finished. "Your father is a hunchback, your mother is a prostitute, your sister is a retard, and you are lucky enough to be a noble, which means you are my servant. What more do you want?" Oscar was genuinely surprised. "Teacher Bujue, your memory is amazing." He flipped the stack of papers over and over again. After confirming that he couldn't see anything from the back, he added, "It's more than enough for you to join the talent show." "Huh, not interested." Feng Bujue laughed. He seemed to be conflicted about the novel before him. So he added, "The writing of the book is not bad, but the plot is too cliché and lacks a highlight. Other than that, there is a small part of the story that is copied from Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls, but it changes the year and characters and changes the bridge bombing into an assassination. When I read it, I felt a sense of déjà vu. When I saw the sentence, 'No one is complete, no one is an island,' I understood it. When the man reached the 30th chapter, he basically didn't know how to continue, so he borrowed a plot from another book. After that, he came up with a rather boring story and couldn't continue." Oscar was stunned. He thought, "So, you not only finished the book, you've been quite serious about it. Are you really that unwilling to write the final chapter of the book? Even if you just write it casually, you'll get a certain number of votes, right? Oscar asked. I don't like to touch other people's work, especially this kind of eunuch's work. Feng Bujue replied. The feeling this kind of novel gives me is like a child from another family. The child hasn't grown up yet, but the parents have abandoned him and tossed him onto the street to fend for himself. He shrugged. Now, you want me, an outsider, to pretend to be his parents and raise him? I'm not going to do that. Since the child's parents don't cherish him, what am I going to do? First of all, I'm not the same kind of person as those parents. Okay, I think I understand now. Oscar added, one more question. What do you think about being eliminated? Do you feel any regret? Do you regret not answering the questions in the third round? Feng Bujue couldn't say that he was playing for the sake of elimination. He scratched his head and decided to say a few words. I think it's good enough that I was able to participate. Thank you for thinking of a small character like me. As for regret, thankfully, there's no regret. As for regret, since I've already done it, I won't regret it. The interview went on for about 15 minutes. There were quite a lot of things to record. For example, there was an evaluation of the other contestants' performance at a certain moment and some questions and answers. At the end of the interview, Oscar looked at the script in his hands. He had asked most of the questions, so he operated the portable player. Before I asked the last question, I have a video clip of all the other writers when they first came to I Am a Writer. It's a remixed version. I hope you could take a look at it. A writer is a writer. It means to me, a writer is a person who uses words to build dreams. It's a job, but it's also a career, a communicator of ideas. It's my life. It's very ordinary, but it's also very extraordinary. It means a path of no return. Ha! Cut this part out. You said that other people's novels are not good here and there. Then, when you write your own, can you do it well? Because I like to write, naturally, I persevered. Everyone starts from the same place. We're chasing the same dream. However, many people took a detour or gave up halfway. But I believe those who can persevere until the end will all reach the same destination. I have to remind myself that I'm a writer. This is not a talent show. We're professionals. We're here to show how a writer should be and not for others to tell us how to write. If anyone can write, then what's the point of us professional writers? Based on tradition, all the writers who come to our show have to answer this question. Oscar paused. Teacher Bujue, what do you think the term writer means to you? After Feng Bujue finished this short video, he suddenly felt like this was a difficult question to answer. Let me think about it. He had a very serious expression on his face, which was something he had never shown during the entire recording process. After a long silence, Feng Bujue finally said, I've made up my mind. The sound technician raised the microphone again. Oscar turned to tell the cameraman, give me a close-up here. Then he turned to face Feng Bujue. Okay, go ahead. Feng Bujue said, for me, a writer is someone who can use words to change the world. As long as you believe in that and stay true to yourself, you can turn your dreams into reality. Chapter 243. The two friends left around 5 in the afternoon. Feng Bujue sent them to the door, and the three of them bade each other farewell by cursing each other. Feng Bujue slammed the door and cleaned up the house. Then he walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and took out a bunch of ingredients. His expression changed, and he put on an apron, rolled up his sleeves, and washed his hands in one go. 2 seconds later, he said excitedly in a Chinibyu tone, Ho ho ho, the guy who's in the way is finally gone. What a long-awaited moment of dark cuisine. He looked at the ingredients on the table and took action at lightning speed. Seasoning the kelp with wine and soy sauce. Adding it to the raw rice can bring out the freshness. The ratio of rice to fish is 1 cup of rice to 1 slice of marinated salmon. Shredded burdock mixed with shredded walnuts. He muttered as he cooked. Although his movements looked very rough, every step was precise and accurate. It could be said that there was finesse in the rough. Dinner is done. He put the finished ingredients into the rice cooker, pressed the button to cook, and looked to the side. The leftover tofu and vegetables from yesterday could be used to make a light braised dish. Add the vinegar, pickled radish, and raw scallops that I prepared in advance. Is this it? He turned on the gas stove fiercely and placed a wok on it. He poured a large amount of salad oil into the wok. When the oil temperature rose, he fried the eggs with salt. Next is to sprinkle some oil on the ingredients for the braised dish. He muttered to himself as he added the ingredients. Wine, dipping sauce, water, taste buds. This person was like a lunatic as he cooked by the stove for almost an hour. In the end, he made 6 dishes and a soup for himself, including vegetables, meat, fish, protein, and so on. It was quite a balanced combination. Oomph, I'm satisfied. After he was done, he sighed proudly. Then, he sat at the big table in the kitchen, poured himself a drink, and pretended to pick up a piece of cloth and stuffed it in his collar. He made it look like he was eating Western food, but he was still holding chopsticks and a spoon in his hands. At this moment, Arthas jumped onto the table and slowly crawled to Fong Bujue's dishes. It completely ignored its master and lowered its head to eat the fish on the plate. You're just a cat that reaps the fruits of others' labor. Aren't you shocked by your master's exquisite skills? Ha ha! Fong Bujue maintained his silly tone and laughed. Arthas heard that and looked up at Fong Bujue. His gaze seemed to say, "Stupid earthling." Several seconds later, Fong Bujue sighed. He tore off the cloth around his collar and returned to his normal self. He looked at the ceiling and said, "Sigh, so lonely." It had been more than a week since the scenario at Chonglin Sword Festival ended. Recently, the names in Fong Bujue's friend list had increased, like a Tobi-sama, Brother Long's friends, Xiao Tan, and Passing Rain's friends in the game. In any case, there are more than 20 people in total. Fong Bujue and Passing Rain had the same attitude when it came to social interaction. They were the type who did not want to expand their social circle and preferred to distance themselves from others. It was difficult to become their friend, and those who did become their friend were no different from those who had boarded a pirate ship. Even though the number of friends had increased, Underworld Frontline still only had 4 members. It was not even enough to form a 6-man team. The system had changed the club buff twice, but the effect was still SOSO. After all, they were at the bottom of both guilds' rankings. However, the strength of the club aside, Fong Bujue's personal ability was already among the top 50 players in the game. After this period of time, Fong Bujue's stats were as follows. Title: Unpredictable Fanatic, EXP, 18750027000 SP, 11,300 Game Coins, 1020000. Mastery, General Ability C, Workmanship D, Sleuthing D, Fighting D, Marksmanship D, Medic E, Sorcery D, Summoning NA Inventory 815. Mario's Wrench, Flashlight, Stool of the 18 Bronze Statues, Number 5, SCP, 500, 1320, Anti-Gravity Gun, Miss Moxie's Bad Temper, Belle of Jean Gang, Persephone's Vacuum Cleaner Equipment, Jazz Shoes, Spiderweb Gloves, Death Poker, Sorcery Weapon, Echo Armor, Goblin's Mass Space 310, Puzzle Card, Monkey, Puzzle Card, Sunglasses, Puzzle Card, Strawberry Skills. Not So Hasty Repair, Body Enhancement Technique. Eat This, Ice Alchemist Persistence. First, the change in EXP. After a player reached level 20, the EXP required to level up would undergo the same qualitative change as when a player was level 10, but there would be an extra 0 behind it. Fong Bujue relied on his advantage of getting extra rewards every time and leveled up at a rate of 1 level per day. Of course, in terms of level, he still couldn't compare to the professional players who were responsible for leveling up. They spent more time online than he did, and they had more planning when it came to clearing dungeons. Furthermore, they had the aid of EXP cards. Currently, the number 1 player in the server was already level 32. Don't underestimate the difference of 5 levels. After level 30, the EXP required would reach 7 digits. However, level did not represent ability. Fong Bujue, who was in the middle of his evolution period, had a unique trait that could be seen from his mastery level. He had no weaknesses. For example, if there was a sport like tennis, The player's ability could be broken down into more than 10 categories, such as speed, reflexes, stamina, serve, backhand, prediction, and so on. Each category will be calculated on a scale of 10. Then, a top player would have more than 3 abilities that were worth 10 points, and the rest would be worth 8 points. Only 1 or 2 of their weaknesses would be worth 6 or 7 points. A normal player's ability would be worth around 7 points for each of their abilities. Only 1 or 2 of their abilities would be worth 9 points, and a few of their abilities would be worth 5 points. Using this standard to measure Phong Bujue, he was like an athlete who was worth 8 points for all of his abilities. Theoretically speaking, this type of athlete was extremely rare. A person who was worth more than 6 points in all of his abilities could only be called average. However, to be worth more than 8 points in all of one's abilities was harder than becoming a top player. This was all-roundness, or rather, omnipotence. In baseball, this was like a player who was good at hitting, running, catching, passing, and shooting. Currently, there was no such player in the world because if one could do 2 of the 5 well, one could become a baseball star. And in Thriller Paradise, the only player who could improve all of his masteries at the same time was Phong Bujue. Now, let's talk about the changes to game coins and items. Phong Bujue had earned quite a lot of game coins when he reached level 27, but 1 million of them had been converted into 5 slots in his inventory. This could not be helped. A newbie's inventory with 10 slots was not enough, so he was using the upgraded standard inventory. After Changlin, Phong Bujue had used up some of his SCP 500 in other scenarios, and he had taken Persephone's vacuum cleaner with him when he reached level 20. In the past few days, he had gained some equipment. On average, he would get at least 1 item per day, but none of them were suitable for him, so he would either hand them over to his teammates or auction them off. Therefore, from the data, Phong Bujue had gained 1 more puzzle card over the years. Lastly, let's talk about skills. I believe everyone has noticed that the first permanent active skill that Phong Bujue learned had evolved after he used it many times. Chapter 244. Name: Not So Hasty Repairs Skill Card Property. Active, permanent skill type. Workmanship effect. Temporarily upgrade a trash or broken mechanical item to normal quality within 15 minutes. Consumption: 200 stamina points learning requirement. Workmanship Embark. If you do not wish to receive more complaints, at least keep the damn equipment running until the end of its warranty. If you open the skill bar and looked at the specific attributes, you would see such data. When the effect of the skill changed, Phong Bujue was quite surprised. He did not expect a skill in the game to level up because the game description did not mention such a setting. This should be something for the players to explore on their own, the kind that could be included in a guide. However, after learning this, another question popped up. Aside from the title skill, was it possible to level up the passive skills or the body enhancement technique, which had a constant consumption of energy? Naturally, Phong Bujue would not get an answer to this question. He had not found any related posts on the gaming forums over the past few days, so Phong Bujue put it aside for now. That was the change that Phong Bujue had experienced over the past week. There was one other thing that needed to be mentioned separately, and that was the Bell of Jin Gang. After defeating the Bell Demon in the realm of the Bell, Phong Bujue and Passing Rain were unable to leave the space. This meant that they had to trigger some kind of scenario. Therefore, the two started their search on the island. Since the boss was dead, there were no more illusions or obstacles on the island. Therefore, they soon found an empty space in the middle of the island. It was a giant circle drawn in blood, using many altars as support points. There was an item at the center of the circle, the Bell of Jin Gang. After picking up the item, Phong Bujue, Passing Rain, and the NPC, Lu Qingning, were released from the realm of the Bell and returned to the mountain north of Changlin Town. Name: Bell of Jin Gang type. Other quality: excellent special effect. Able to perform the following 4 commands. 1. Observe the details of an NPC. 2. Observe the details of a monster, excluding boss-level monsters. 3. Acquire a 5-minute death warning function. 4. Double the effect of your next sorcery mastery skill, under reasonable conditions. Remark, unable to trade after picking up, but selling the item directly to the system shop will not be stopped. Cooldown time, 12 hours, ends immediately after leaving the scenario. Once all 4 commands were executed, the Bell of Jingang would enter a cooldown state. Players can also initiate the cooldown of the item. During the cooldown period of the item, the player cannot use any kind of command. This thing didn't have any equipment requirements, and it seemed to have a lot of functions. But in fact, only the first 2 items were commonly used. Normally, in a long-term scenario, after Feng Bujue used the first 2 orders, he would automatically let the item go off cooldown. As for the third special effect, Death Warning, the effect was a little weak. To put it bluntly, it was just a warning of the degree of threat. For example, if a zombie appeared before the player, the Bell of Jingang would ring on its own, and as the zombie approached, the ringing would become more urgent. However, if a monster appeared before the player, the ringing would be more urgent, and when a monster's large feet fell from the sky, the ringing would still be the same. This special effect might be useful under certain circumstances. For example, when the visibility was very low, the player could not use their naked eyes to confirm the enemy's location or power, so they could only rely on the ringing of the bell. But the problem was, wouldn't that expose their location? As for the fourth special effect, Feng Bujue had already tested it. Obviously, Body Enhancement spell did not fit the requirement of under reasonable conditions, so it could not double the effect. As a skill that would last for a long time, that was to be expected. Feng Bujue had once obtained the Black Dragon Flame, so he could enjoy the double effect, but unfortunately, he had already used it. As for the other offensive sorcery skills, he did not have any of them. In short, the Bell of Jingang could only allow Feng Bujue to see the specific situation of NPCs and the combat power of some elite monsters. As for the other 2 special effects, he would not normally use them. Ding dong! A notification suddenly rang, and Feng Bujue received an email. He tapped on the touchscreen a few times and came to the email browsing interface. The email's title was, "There are 2 more items that will be sent to you tomorrow." The sender was Blade Runner. When he saw the title, Feng Bujue understood that the items in hard disk 2455, one had been successfully created by the members of Jianghu. According to the agreement, Blade Runner had to give 3 of the items to Feng Bujue. This guy really did not go back on his words. Feng Bujue muttered and received the attachment in the email, and the item was directly placed into his inventory. He immediately opened his inventory to check. Name, Endless Grenade box type. Tool quality, excellent. Function, make grenades, special effect. Every 20 minutes, this container will create a Mark II grenade. Remark, this container's product can only exist 2 at a time, regardless of whether the product is placed in the container or not. The created grenade cannot be sold to the system shop or placed in the auction house. If the product is not detonated after 120 minutes out of the container, it will disappear. Feng Bujue immediately took out the grenade box from his inventory. It looked like a basket used to store badminton balls, but it had a black metal shell and was much heavier. He unscrewed the lid and tilted it so that he could grab a grenade. Name, Mark II grenade, generated item. Type, consumable quality, normal special effect, indiscriminate explosive attack remark. After pulling the fuse, the delay is 4 to 4. 8 seconds. The damage radius is 5 to 10 yards. Its metallic shell is serrated, and it will create more shrapnel after the explosion. The shrapnel's damage radius is up to 50 yards, so please get down as soon as possible after throwing it. This is not a bad item. In fact, it is so good that it is beyond my expectations. Feng Bujue grumbled. By the way, what have the 20 designs in the hard drive created? Even such a godlike item was given away as a gift. He paused like he was reminded of something. Or, because my actions in the scenario left a psychological scar on Blade Runner, he purposely gave me an item related to explosions? Who cares? Feng Bujue placed the grenade back into the box and put the tool back into his inventory. At that moment, the other 3 from Underworld Frontline were not online. The other people on his friend list were either in the game or were not close to him. Therefore, Feng Bujue's masochistic tendencies were awakened again. He turned his gaze to the nightmare mode option on screen. Chapter 245. Feng Bujue, Level 27. Please select the game mode that you wish to join. You have selected single-player survival mode, Nightmare. Please confirm. Confirmed. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. The familiar greeting appeared again. Download complete. You're currently playing single-player survival mode, Nightmare. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there's a chance to trigger hidden side quests and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario. Randomly draw a puzzle card. Playing the scenario introduction soon. The game will start after that. Chi. The moment the cinematic started, there was this sound. It sounded like an object rubbing against the floor. The scene before Feng Bujue was initially dark, but several seconds later, like an eyelid opening, a slit opened in the middle of the screen. It expanded until he could see the scene before him clearly. The image was blurry, and a small and thin figure appeared in his sight. From the shape, it was a man. He was wearing a bloodied shirt and overalls, and he was walking in front of Feng Bujue. Feng Bujue, or rather, the character that Feng Bujue was playing, was lying on the ground. The figure was dragging him down a long corridor by one of his feet. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Something must be wrong. I will find a solution, the figure before him said to himself. Feng Bujue could not feel anything, and he could not control the camera because this was still the opening cinematic. He was looking at someone else's experience from a first-person perspective. About 30 seconds later, the figure stopped before an iron door at the end of the corridor. Then there was the sound of metal clanking. The door opened, and Feng Bujue watched as he was dragged into a room that looked like a prison. The camera shook twice before it focused on the ceiling. Then there was the sound of the small man leaving the room and locking the door. Even after he walked out the door, he was still repeating the same sentence. Important reminder, consumables are not allowed in this scenario, and equipment and tools that are powered by consumables, ammo, battery, and so on, are not allowed. WEF. Feng Bujue cursed in his mind. You didn't even tell me a single synopsis of the plot, and you've already given me such a harsh restriction. It was still too early for him to curse because the next second, the scenario officially started. There was no synopsis at all. Feng Bujue's vision coincided with the last scene of the opening cinematic. He was lying on the ground, facing the ceiling. The moment he regained the ability to move and feel, he felt a piercing pain all over his body. The pain was simply unimaginable. It was as if every bone in his body had been broken, and there were large areas of burns on the surface of his skin. There were also countless worms crawling under his skin, of course. The pain simulated by the system had been weakened. As mentioned before, the maximum pain a player could feel would not exceed the strength of a hammer hitting a finger. Otherwise, there would be a risk of fainting. However, although the intensity of the pain was limited, the form was still very rich. When the feelings described above happened to the body, there was no need to mention how good it felt. In real life, Feng Bujue had not experienced something like this before. Even though he was a person with great endurance at that moment, he had the urge to retreat. Main quest triggered. Find a way to stop the loss of life points. After Feng Bujue heard the system announcement, he immediately opened the quest tab to check the content of the quest. At the same time, he realized that his life points were dropping at a rate of 1% per second. What kind of F***king scenario is this? Feng Bujue gritted his teeth and sat up. Just this movement caused a burning sensation to shoot up his spine, and the muscles on his back and arms were numb with numbness. He quickly observed his surroundings. Resisting the pain, he forced himself to focus and keep his brain working at high speed. Consumables were not allowed in this scenario, which meant that Feng Bujue could not use potions to recover his life points. Before entering the scenario, he had gone to a mall to buy 5 life points recovery potions, medium, but it was all for naught. Theoretically speaking, Feng Bujue had less than 1 minute and 40 seconds to complete this first quest. Once he exceeded that time limit, this would become his last quest. The way to stop it, the way to stop it. Feng Bujue repeated this sentence repeatedly. It helped him focus better. He first scanned the entire cell. There were no windows in the cell, only a door. The door was made from iron, and there was a small window above it. The light from the corridor shone in from there, and it covered most of the cell in a hazy light. There was a rectangular opening at the bottom of the door, and it was just large enough for food to be delivered. The walls of the room were made of stone, and they were very thick. The floor and ceiling were made of cement. There was a simple bed placed against the wall, and the bedsheet was so stained with blood that its original color could not be seen. There was no pillow or mattress on the bed, and the 4 bed legs were not high enough to fit a person. The frame of the bed was made from iron. It was welded to the wall and could not be moved. In the corner furthest from the door was a large blue plastic bucket. From a smell that came from it, it was probably the toilet. In the other corner of the room, there was a small wooden cupboard about 1 meter tall. From top to bottom, there were 3 drawers. When Feng Bujue saw the cupboard, he rushed toward it without hesitation. In such a situation, no matter what was inside the 3 drawers, the player had to open them first. In the top drawer, there was a piece of dirty soap. Even though it was dirty, from the shape, the bar of soap was perfect. It was a standard rectangle, like it had just been taken out from a mold. The appearance of this thing was a little unclear. There was no drain in the room, and the urine and feces were all stored in plastic buckets, so naturally, there would not be a faucet. What was the purpose of placing a bar of soap here? To wash his hands with saliva? Feng Bujue did not have time to read the item description, so he placed the bar of soap on top of the cupboard and then went to open the second drawer. The middle drawer was more interesting. There was a candle inside. It was white, about 15 centimeters long, and slightly thicker than a finger. What is going on? Soap but not tap water, candles but not matches. Even a movie like Saw wouldn't do something like this. Feng Bujue said as he placed the candle on top of the cupboard and went to open the third drawer. The bottom drawer was the most interesting. It contained a small wooden comb. Ha! Ha ha! Feng Bujue laughed drily. By then, he had almost forgotten, or rather, gotten used to the pain on his body. Compared to the discomfort, the 3 things that he discovered during the process of solving the puzzle were more troublesome. Okay, without any hint, what do you want me to do in this situation? Feng Bujue mumbled. 1 minute had passed, and Feng Bujue had 39% of his life points left. He had 38 seconds to think about it. Players are not allowed to remove their clothes in the scenario, so I can rule out the possibility of using the candle to poke myself in the ass. Feng Bujue scratched his chin. Eat soap? Eat candle? His eyes moved to the bucket. Or eat **T? He shook his head. These actions have nothing to do with stopping the loss of life points. Thinking of this, his gaze returned to the small comb in his hand. Since I can't think of a logically related method, I'll use all the props one by one. Let's start with the simplest one. As he said that, he used the small comb to comb his hair twice. Unexpectedly, before she could finish combing her hair for the second time, the system notification rang. Current quest completed. Main quest updated. The loss of life points had stopped. Feng Bujue's life points were then at 26%. When the scenario started, he had less than 30% of his life points left. This was the first time he had encountered something like this. There was a tick next to the previous quest, find a way to stop the loss of life points, and a new instruction appeared in the quest tab. Escape from the room. Huh? Feng Bujue looked at the comb in his hand. Even though I don't need to try to eat the weird stuff anymore, this is too... He was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly noticed something. He brought the comb closer to his eyes and took a closer look. He saw 2 very small letters carved on the handle of the comb. Looks like it's a limited edition. Feng Bujue said half-jokingly. He took the 3 items and walked to the bedside. He placed the 3 items on the bed and picked them up one by one to study them closely. With the completion of the quest, the pain on Feng Bujue's body lightened. Even though there was still some pain, it was much more comfortable than before. If one had to compare it, It was like the difference between hanging and wearing a neck brace. He studied it for 5 minutes. There was nothing special about the soap. There was no pattern on the surface, and the smell was not that fragrant. It felt like the most primitive type of laundry soap. The candles were normal candles, and there were no words carved on either of the items. So, this comb is the only special one. He picked up the comb again and studied it from all angles. Other than the AA that he saw earlier, he made another discovery. The hair that was left on the comb was blonde and looked short. The small man who dragged me here earlier had brown hair. Fong Bujua mumbled to himself as he tried to remember. Was it once used by the other prisoners in this cell? As he thought about it, his eyes moved slowly. When his eyes scanned the wall next to the bed, he made a new discovery. Looks like quite a number of people have been imprisoned here, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.